All right. Calling to order the November 18th, 2024 Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission special meeting. We would like to start with a land acknowledgement, and I guess I'll do that tonight. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we live, work, learn, and commune is the original homelands of the indigenous people of West Sacramento, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We acknowledge and thank the original inhabitants who have occupied, maintained, and secured this place, and who still exist on this land. We respect and celebrate the many diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather. Thank you. We're going to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I need to take roll call? I'm sorry, did I miss something?
You're fine.
I'm fine, okay. Move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you all please stand?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh yeah, I was wondering.
I suppose we should take a roll call here. Would you mind doing that?
I wouldn't at all.
Thank you.
Commissioner McCrudden?
Present.
Commissioner Zuniga?
Present.
Commissioner Cummings?
Present.
Chair Zimmer?
Present.
Commissioner Rohr?
Present.
Commissioner Four?
Present.
Thank you very much. And that's everyone. We're going to move on to the General Administration Function Part 1, presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the Commission. And do we have any presentations for that?
We do. We have one request to speak.
Okay. I just want to first quickly note that the Commission is not allowed to comment or speak on these presentations, but you're certainly welcome to speak. Oh, come on up to the microphone. Thank you.
I'm working with a lot of older people in the area. I'm also a commissioner on the Yellow Commission.
You want to hit your mic? You want to hit your mic so we can hear you on the video? Oh, sorry. I just want to make sure the video can hear. Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah.
Okay,
There you go.
there. Do you need me to
Nope.
repeat that?
Nope.
Good,
Yep.
because I'm
I'll
not
give you a little
sure
extra
I
time.
could repeat it.
No, I'll give you a little extra time.
Okay. I was just, because I've been aware of what's going on with older adults, and because Chris Walden saw his way to discontinue a commission for aging, in spite of the aging population of West Sac. So now we're tacked on to the Parks and Recreation, and mostly because I've been to Yolo County and seen what their commission is doing for older people, I've gotten a lot more involved with my peers. Let me put it that way. And I was wondering if I should bring this up to you about the parking in the Bridge District for these older adults. A lot of them are paying $130 per month to park for houses that people rent to them that they've been renting for years. They're paying $700 or so in rent, which we all know you can't find anymore in West Sac. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe a dispensation could be made if they showed up somewhere with an ID saying, I'm, over the age of 65. Can I please get a break on my parking? I know that for the people living there, they've been grandfathered in for one car, I believe, but all the rest is $130 per month. I have heard of no place, including Sacramento, that has that kind of price scale. The other thing I'd like to see is a whole heck of a lot more handicap parking, especially along the river where it says no parking forever and ever and ever, amen. But there is no handicap parking. And at present, all you can do is find it in one neighborhood over near where the tree house thing used to be, where Heritage Park is going up. Sorry. But where Heritage Park is going up, they have one space over there for handicap. And for us that are handicapped, it used to be that we could catch the river walk down at Bright boat ramp down there, but it's got uncomfortable because of the homeless or the unsheltered living down there. So now, basically, the only place you can get on it at all to get on the whole river walk is down near the Pyramid Building. So.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments?
There are no other comments at this.
Okay. With that, we're going to move on to the presentation section. And I believe, do we have a request?
Yes, staff would like to request that we move item number 2 under the regular agenda, having it be the first item there.
I think that's okay.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the consent agenda, which has nothing on it. Public hearings have nothing on it. So we're going to move on to the regular agenda. We're going to start with the item that was just moved there. And this is presentation on ordinance 24-17, amending chapters 9 and 12 in repealing and readopting Title 10 of the West Sacramento Municipal Code related to traffic and parking. So we're going to hand it over to city staff. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Larry Lee. I'm Parking Manager for the city. I realize I haven't had the chance to meet many of you yet, so I'd like to share a little bit of background on myself. I've been working in local government parking for the past 18 years. Started my career with the city of Sacramento, where I had the privilege of working on parking modernization efforts and playing a key role in relocating the Sacramento Kings to the downtown core. 6 years ago, an incredible opportunity brought me here to West Sacramento, where I've continued my journey in parking. As I'll touch on shortly, I now have the privilege of working on yet another exciting opportunity, which is relocating a major league team here to West Sacramento. And so with that, I'm here to present Ordinance 24-17 before you tonight, which proposes updates to chapters 9 and 12, along with a repeal and readoption of Title 10 of the West Sacramento Municipal Code. These updates are the result of years of planning, working with the community, and really a commitment to creating a sustainable and accessible urban core. Many sections of our code have not been updated for a very long time, some dating back to the city's incorporation in 1987. The proposed ordinance aims to modernize these outdated provisions to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow, including advancements in technology, changes in department structures, growing demand for parking and traffic management, and the needs of our rapidly expanding city. A key focus of this update is the Bridge District, a thriving area that has become a regional success story, home to destinations like Drake's, The Barn, and world-class events such as Ironman. The district is preparing for even more growth. In just 4 months, the A's will begin playing at Sutter Hill Park, bringing in unprecedented activity to the area. The updates being proposed tonight will help manage the increased traffic and parking demand while preserving the district's walkable and transit-friendly character. By integrating best practices in urban parking management, these updates will really protect residents and businesses during this rapid growth, preserve on-street parking for short-term users and visitors, encourage sustainable development, and support alternative transportation options like biking, walking, and transit. Some of the notable changes include comprehensive revisions to reflect modern practices and strengthen enforcement, new chapters for on and off-street parking, parking fee adjustments to align with regional market rates, improving availability and turnover, and a parking and reservation system to streamline traffic and parking for events. These updates also align with the city's general plan 2035, specifically M71, creating a parking system that reflects the true cost of vehicle use. M713, using pricing strategies to reduce congestion and encourage alternative transportation. This ordinance is a critical step in preparing West Sacramento's for the continued growth and evolving needs. It reflects best practices in urban parking management, ensuring we're ready for future challenges and opportunities, including, again, Major League Baseball's arrival in just 4 months. Pending your feedback tonight, this ordinance will proceed to the City Council for a first reading on November 20th, with a second reading and adoption scheduled for December 4th. If adopted, the changes will go into effect in early 2025. Staff respectfully request that the Commission recommend City Council adopt Ordinance 2417. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any feedback and address any questions you may have. And we also have in the room CP staff who may be able to answer some questions that I don't have the expertise in.
We appreciate that, that overview. I want to start quickly and ask, are there any public comments on this?
Yes, there's one. Rosie?
Didn't have an opportunity to read this all because it was kind of dense, but I was wondering how far the bridge area goes up on, say, Sacramento, if you are coming from the Black Bridge up Sacramento Avenue, how far up is going to be included in that? To Jefferson or before Jefferson, or, you know?
Yes, I can answer that, Rosie. So actually, we have a map that's included in the attachment, and if you don't have one, we can certainly provide it to you after the meeting.
Just a quick comment. It looks like it's just past Fifth Street. From the I Street Bridge to, I'm looking at the map right now. So, hopefully. It looks actually like 6th Street is kind of the border on the northern half, and a little bit farther south of Sacramento Avenue, like out toward 7th or 8th. It looks like 8th Street. That's where, yeah. I guess with that, I'm going to open it up for a discussion with the commission. Who would like to start?
I got a couple questions, just more clarification on a couple issues that I read in the document. Well, I guess first I want to say I think the idea of doing the parking at the Broderick Boat Ramp is great. I've talked to some people who work in the traffic unit, and it seems like a smart move from a total law enforcement managing that area kind of process. I had a couple of questions about it. One, there's a difference between obviously the auto parking and the vehicle with a trailer. Can it be any kind of trailer? I mean, is it going to drive people bringing their travel trailers in there? Is that?
For that, typically, it's going to be a boat trailer. So it's typically what you would see out at like Discovery Park or the Miller Park and Garcia Bend boat ramps.
There's no prohibition of somebody bringing in a travel trailer and hanging out there for the day and kind of camping or?
Yeah, for that one, they would pay the vehicle fee. So they would be subject to any other vehicle fees. So in this case, I think, let me take a look here. So under that, under attachment 3 on page 2, they would be subject to the vehicle fee. If it's just the vehicle by itself, it would be $7.
Right. Yeah, and somebody with a single vehicle, and this is kind of a self-serving question, I kayak and sometimes I'll go and get in there. I got a vehicle, but if I do it more than 10, 12 times a year, it'd be worth it to have the annual pass. Can a single vehicle get the annual pass it says it's a vehicle and a trailer, but
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you don't have to have the trailer with that pass. Just wanted to clarify that.
You know what? That is a good question. Right now, we don't have that proposed. So that's something that we can certainly take a look at with our park staff.
Okay,
I know in other jurisdictions like Sac County, they would have like a vehicle and a small watercraft fee.
Mhm.
And so I can certainly speak with our park staff to see if that's something that they would be interested in. We're working with them on this.
And if somebody's just going to use the actual ramp and then drop somebody off and leave, is a
Yeah, so
fee?
in that case, there is no fee.
Okay, all right,
It's only for parking.
yeah. Are there going to be, is there going to be like one of those one kiosk, park, mobile kiosk where you pay by the spot number, or do you have that figured out yet?
Yeah, so we looked at this, and so the best way to proceed that we've determined is we're going to offer Park Mobile there. And so it'll be paid by license plate, and then in terms of the annual passes, it'll be similar to how you would purchase a pass today for parking in the city.
Right.
And so you would go online and purchase it, and it's all done through license plate.
Unless you get the annual pass.
Annual pass would be through license plate as well.
Oh, okay. Enforcement. So enforcement in the 3 parking areas that we have is currently under contract with the city of Sacramento, correct?
That's correct.
And so the plan is they're going to also do the boat ramp?
That's correct. And, for the city, we've been exploring a park ranger program for probably 2 years now. And so we imagine that they're probably going to have some role in enforcing some of the parking as well. Just given that the contract staff with the city of Sacramento, they've been experiencing staff turnover and staff shortages. So as we bring up that park ranger program, they're going to be helping fill in some of the voids as well,
Right.
some of the gaps.
And this is just a question for my own edification as I learn more about what you guys all do. But in those 3 zones, if you wanted to add meters, you're the parking manager. Is that just something you decide, or is there a process? Is there a public notice if it impacts certain streets? How does that work?
Yeah, so for adding meters, it's something that we work very closely with any affected businesses or residents on. We wouldn't just go out and add meters. That's not the way that it's done. Like in Sacramento, we would, work with the restaurants, make sure they're on board with that. The residents especially, there may be permit exemptions for the residents that, they don't have to pay for parking if they're parked in a metered area. So it will be, working closely with the business before we do anything like that.
Couple more. It indicated that, part of this was cleaning up the language. You had the traffic committee, now you got the traffic and parking technical coordination group. And it said that that was going to reference that in Title 10, but I didn't actually see it called out as.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll have to
function.
refer back to that. We did have some last minute changes with our city attorney, so that may have been overlooked in the staff report. So I will go back and take a look and make sure.
There is going to be called out as a function? Or?
I think in the newer version, we actually don't call it out in the municipal code because we felt that it was unnecessary at this point.
It's still a working group that you guys will use.
Correct. We still meet monthly, at least monthly.
Because again, the parking staff, the traffic enforcement folks I talked to said that they're really pleased the way things have been going, especially working on the A's and things like that. So I just want to make sure that group was still something that you guys will use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether you codify it or not, it's probably better not codified because then you probably have to notice it and all that stuff, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, those meetings have been really helpful for everybody in the city. So we agree.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for your time and your. I would love to hear top of your head any ways. I appreciate that cars really need to be kind of helped out in this kind of process and kind of changing and updating of the city's policies. But is there any sort of, and what we'll be commenting on today, are there any provisions for maybe pushing people more towards bike traffic towards the stadium specifically there. I know that they do operate, the Rivercat Stadium does operate a bicycle valet service there, and that it's limited in scope, but still there. And just specifically, is there any provisions in the plan you're presenting for bicycle parking, expanded space for bike valet, or do you have any sort of kind of power over the bike valet program at the Rivercat Stadium, or is that just a private company in-house enterprise?
Yeah, so what I can say on that is we have been in discussions with the A's over the course of the last several months on, alternative modes of transportation, and the bike valet was one of them. I know that that's going to continue to be offered there at the ballpark. Although from my experience with relocating the Go to One Center downtown, we did also have the bike valet at Cesar Chavez Park, and that actually ended up not being highly utilized. So in terms of the effectiveness of something like that, remains to be seen. But it is in conversation. In terms of today's item before you guys, we actually are looking at increasing the fines for bike lane violations. We just heard over and over again that vehicles are parked in bike lanes, and it's a repeat offense. And so we're obviously want to make sure that drivers know that, hey, our bike infrastructure is really important, and we want to encourage alternative modes of transportation. And if a vehicle is parked in the bike lane, you can't safely ride your bike. So a lot of these address safety violations like that.
I really appreciate the bike lane violation. I've got some personal experience with the bike valet at the Golden One Center, as I used to manage the bike valet program for Sacramento Area Bicycle Advocates that does the parking there. It's since relocated to the actual plaza of Doco, and I did the numbers of bikes have been quite significant, as well as it's taking over a bag valet there. So I would recommend to really look into the effectiveness of it. It's a really, there's a lot of big loyal followers to the bike valet program. Saba is not involved with the one at the Rivercat Stadium, but I would love to see that expanded upon. And it's just it's one of the big leading things to keep those parking spots open for people that cannot use a bike, have to take a car coming further away, because there's just a ton of people within biking distance. If that's made easily accessible and kind of push towards, I think it's going to really do some good in this project. And I guess I would also like to ask if there's any provisions in what you're presenting today for kind of pushing people towards transit, towards getting to Bridge District on buses or other kind of public.
Yeah, it just goes back to pricing. We just, over the years, we just know that, what changes people's behavior the most is pricing. And so the more you can appropriately price parking and everything, it really motivates folks to go to alternative modes of transportation. And so that's really, if I can just convey that message, that would be it. In addition to everything else that we're doing in here, it really supports alternative modes like that.
Is that done through making parking kind of more prohibitively costly? To kind of put more towards people more towards that area?
Well, that's one component of it, which is obviously when we don't have enough parking supply, there's always a correlation between supply and demand there, and so we want to make sure that we price it appropriately, so the Bridge District is accessible to folks, and one of that is future transit that's planned for the district, including current one, which I believe we have a bus route through the Baldwin Parkway currently.
That's great. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I know parking is a huge challenge, and I very much appreciate your work.
Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm wondering if there's any provisions related to just rideshare drop-off and usage, particularly around, or any planning's been done around that, particularly around the stadium or any of the high congestion areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been working with the River Cats in our police department on that specific topic, including with our capital project staff here. And so there's currently rideshare pickup and drop off on 5th and on Cabaldon Parkway. And so what we're proposing to do with the ACE coming here in the next 4 months is to shift that rideshare area to the 7th and Cabaldon Parkway area over there. That way it's outside of the busy area next to the ballpark. And so we have in the municipal code update language that allows us to do that.
Thank you.
Talking about the 7th and Cabaldon Parkway, I noticed that there in the parking lot on 5th, you do the special event parking, which is like 25% more. So at the 7th, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. You get so much congestion there right at Sutter Health Park, and that this one's kind of away. Doesn't the distributed parking also kind of minimize some of the traffic? Why would you want to charge them more if they're parking away from the core, I guess would be the...
Yeah, actually, the 7th and Cabaldon Parkway lot, that lot is only 75 spaces.
Right,
and
it's not a lot.
right now we have about, I want to say, around 20 monthly parkers. And what's going to happen over the next couple of months here is we have the West Gateway Place Phase 2 project that is completing construction soon.
So you can get
And
more
they
monthly.
only have around, like, I think, something like 15 spaces for, I don't know how many units, maybe 70. So they're going to need a lot of parking, and where they're going to park is in that parking lot. And so what we don't want is we don't want that parking lot to be filled with event goers that go to Sutter Health Park. We really want to make sure that that parking remains available for the residents. Okay. And so that's the reasoning behind it. And what we're actually doing, it's actually included in the book of fees update, is we want to roll out a prepaid parking reservation system. So when folks are going to a game, they'll be able to pre-purchase their parking online, so they can know where to go, and they won't affect residential parking as much. For example, the 7th and Cabaldon lot, which only has 75 spaces. We're going to be opening the Ziggurat Garage, which has 1,500 spaces. So we are really excited about that. And so that's going to hopefully alleviate a lot of the traffic and parking congestion, especially in the Bridge District, because we're just going to see a huge influx of vehicles.
Will the Ziggurat just be for evening games because of the workforce there during the day?
That's correct. So right now, it's going to be for evening games, and if there's a daytime game on Saturday or Sunday, it's going to be for that as well. In terms of a weekday game, when DGS is inside the Ziggurat building, we are still working with the property owner on how we're going to handle something like that. But what we have seen is that DGS employees, a lot of them have been working remotely. I know some of them have returned recently, but even pre-pandemic, when we did a parking occupancy survey for that garage, they were only on average 69% full. So, you know, you do 69% of 1,500, that's a couple hundred spaces that are available. And, you know, with this hybrid work schedule in place now, there's even more space available there during the workday. And the property owner has told us that they're motivated to generate some revenue. So we, you know, have some, I don't know how to say it, but they're motivated to fill the garage as we do. So.
Okay, thank you.
Just a comment about the reserving the parking in advance. I would just recommend that if it's already filled up through the reservation, just make sure that people can't just drive up and take the spots and pay for it. That's an experience I've had in downtown where I would reserve in advance, and then almost all the parking spots were taken and there was only one left. And I think that it would be very easy for someone to reserve in advance and then show up and there's no parking for people that just showed up, parked, paid right then.
Sorry you had that experience. Yeah, that's something that we're going to be watching really closely. So that's something that we'll be working closely with the River Cats on as well. Thank you for the feedback.
Guess I have lots of comments, but I want to say I think you've done a good job thinking about the special event parking and adding capacity. I think all of that sounds very reasonable. I do have some questions about residents, though, and folks who are not impacted by the special events. And I'm curious, I think there was a provision about a permit parking for residents and monthly rates, and I want to get into that a little bit. Like, you are going to be issuing parking permits to residents similar to they have across the river. Can you describe that a little bit?
So we're not proposing any new permits. I think the only change to the permit rates are going to be the Fifth and Bridge lot. There's a slight increase there to $60 in January, or around that January timeframe, and then again to $80 in July 2026. And I think that's really it. There's the Ziggurat Garage where we're gonna, because we don't know what the rate is going to be charged at Sutter Hill Park yet. We put that language in there, but besides that, the other rates are gonna stay the same. So.
I want to acknowledge that we did get some comments before this presentation about parking, which were supposedly off the agenda, but I want to acknowledge that Rosie's comments were actually relevant to the agenda, and so I would like to address them. Senior parking it does look like there was a couple of $135 monthly rate in the Ziggurat Garage. I'm just curious if there is any provision for seniors to get a break on parking, if that's anything that the city has considered.
Yeah, that's something that is definitely an interesting topic. So I like to explore that more, especially if we gain more access to the Ziggurat Garage on a more consistent basis. Because there's just a huge ample supply of parking there. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there to expand options for folks like seniors and other folks like maybe part-time workers, or there's a lot of, a diverse set of people out there that can definitely serve with that. And what I'll say with the Ziggurat Garage is that we do have some exciting things that are coming soon, although I can't share everything, but we may have a lot more options in the coming months here.
Yeah, that's something I would definitely be excited to see, if there's any opportunity to address that in this document before it's adopted. I think that would be probably something worth thinking about is, how can we, accommodate seniors who live there? Maybe we're not trying to accommodate people that are driving in from elsewhere, but if somebody is living on a fixed income or even lower income residents, if we have residents who are lower income and they live in the Bridge District, or they live in that area, I want to make sure that these parking fees, I do feel like right now, there's been a lot of discussion about inflation and the rising costs of food and going out and this and that, and I think people are feeling pretty squeezed, and I don't think wages have kept up with that, and so I want us to be very careful about adding parking fees when cars unfortunately are required to get around. Like, we don't have a transit system yet that can be used for grocery shopping and going to the doctors, and especially if you're not, if you're young and crazy, like some of us bike all over the place no matter what, but not everybody can do that. And like our cycling infrastructure is not there yet. It's going in that direction. I think it's fantastic, but it's not. And the reality is that there are a lot of people who do need a car. Most of us need a car to get around, to do basic things. And I just want to make sure that, if there's any way that we can give residents a huge break on this, make the monthly rates are not outrageous, but at the same time, it's been tough. I think it's been tough on a lot of people economically recently. And if there's any way that we can think about folks on fixed incomes or folks that are lower income and giving them a break on that, I think that would be another thing I would suggest adding. And that's just in general. This is mostly about residents. This isn't really about visitors, but mostly about residents. Think about that. I'll pause. I have more comments, but I wanted to see if any other commissioners had additional comments.
Just had a quick question just regarding that. Regarding the Fifth and Bridge lot with the monthly rates, was the apartment complex on board with everything, the Bridge District and everything, with pretty much doubling it in a year and a half?
Oh, you mean increasing the rate? You know what? I didn't specifically speak with the Bridge District apartments specifically about this rate increase, but what I can tell you is that historically the city lot there has been really under market, and so currently it's $40. But when we did a survey just recently, all the off-street lots there, they charge minimum $100 a month to park, $100 to $150 a month. And so we're, with this rate adjustment, we still are going to be way under market. I think the exception is the Rivermark. I think they give their residents free parking 1-to-1 ratio because I think they're an affordable housing complex. But besides that, yeah, we're still going to be way under market. And with these fees, we're really hoping to recover a lot of our costs, and we have a lot of maintenance needs for the lot, especially as the usage increases.
And then one other quick thing, just for personal reasons as well. So the special event rate, so, that's kind of pertaining to like for, River Cats game for that one lot, it's, it's $15. So that saying like that bridge lot and then the meters around Drake's would be $15. With the A's coming in, things like that, are we looking at that parking rate being a lot more? And then if that's the case, if it's close to like 30 to 40, is that going to impact like people wanting to go to Drake's when, the A's are playing 4 or 5 games in a row?
Yeah, so the special event rate, it kicks in after 2 hours. So, and that's, on purpose because most folks, when they go to visit like Brinkhead or even the Drake's barn, majority are probably going to be, 2 hours. If you're above that, you're likely going to be an attendee at the ballpark, which is why we have the special event rate kicking in at 2 hours. And so if you're going to Drake's the Barn, the idea is that, hey, you would go in, you would park, and, you would pay for your 2 hours, or in some cases, you get your first 2 hours free. And so in terms of what the rate is going to be, I think you were referring to what the actual rate's going to be, because right now they're charging $15 for parking at the ballpark. We don't know yet what rate Sutter Health Park is going to charge, but we imagine it will probably be, if I'm taking a guess, it'll probably stay the same for the River Cats games, but for the A's game, it's probably going to be higher, just because the level of demand is going to be there and the supply is not. So.
When we're talking about special event rates, pretty much we're talking about the River Cats and A's games. Because you actually have a list on the website and those dates and things like that. But it's been a couple occasions where the barn has had this evening market thing. And I remember one time, my dog, thought I'd run down there and go hang out and stuff. And it was a nightmare. And, it was 8 o'clock at night. People were doing U-turns on that main drag there right in front of the barn, and the lot was full. That's probably not on your special events, which, that's great. But in terms of thinking of, it was almost a safety hazard. There was so much traffic, and like I said, and of course, the ones revving their engines and doing all that stuff too. But I ended up parking all the way to the Midway and just walking the dog, because that's the whole idea, was getting the dog out for a spin. But a game wasn't going on. There's all those parking lots there. Is there being thought to, when they do something like that, it's going to drive that traffic, to open up one of those, do something with Rayleigh Field or Sutter Health Park to utilize that space and, get those people off the street so they're not,
Yeah, so for the off-street lots at the ballpark, that's more of a land use area, because those lots can only be used for events at the ballpark on a temporary basis.
Okay.
What we don't want is, for those to remain parking lots forever. We want to see development on those vacant lots, and not just that, but obviously, they're not improved to the typical standards that we want a off-street lot to be improved to. And so those have been operating on a temporary basis, on an annual basis since the ballpark was built, actually. So in terms of making that available to parking in the barn, I have seen them do that on some occasion, but under very limited circumstances. But in terms of additional off-street supply, we are looking at possibly constructing an off-street lot under the freeway. It'll be about, I think, somewhere around 250 stalls. But right now, we don't have any funding for it. Funding need would be about $3 million. And, we have to work with the Central Valley Flood Protection Board and Caltrans and everything else too. So, but that may be in the pipeline.
Long-term prospect, though, like you said, those lots will ultimately be developed at some point in time. Is there plans for additional parking structure? I mean, I'm more bike and walk, and I'd love to do that, but still, you're going to have a core need for that. Is there a plan for?
Yes, absolutely. It's just that's definitely a dream for the Bridge District. That's something that we are, we have in our long-term plans. It's just the cost of parking is so expensive. For off-street parking, you're looking at, up to $40,000 a space. So for a 1,000 stall garage, that could be $40 million, and that's just simply money that we don't have today. But it's definitely something that we think about all the time.
Thank you.
And actually, I just want to add to that too, that a mobility hub is something that we're looking at placing on the Bridge District, just because it's just it makes sense. It's off the freeway. It's an urban core area, and
Here, actually. Oh, yes, thank you. Sacramento, the city has been doing some very good work in terms of parking, and I believe recently repealing parking minimums for businesses. And apologies if it's already in the supplied materials, but does West Sacramento have provisions for parking minimums? And if so, are there any sort of discussions in your department or in this particular project in maybe removing or reviewing those for kind of modern sensibilities?
yeah. So I don't think we have any staff from our planning division here, but that's going to be something that's under our planning division. That's within their purview. But what I can say to that is there's been recent state laws that have changed that equation. For example, as some of you guys may know, there's the Assembly Bill 2097, which restricts cities from implementing minimum parking if it's within a quarter mile of current or planned transit stops. So we have that. And then in terms of the Bridge District and within our municipal code, we also give discounts if, for example, it's in affordable housing, or if they do things like install bike racks, or just being in the Bridge District, an urban area, there are discounts as well.
And are those discounts for developers, for businesses coming in, or?
I believe this would be under our planning staff's expertise, but I believe that's for new developments that come to the city. But then again, I can certainly connect you with planning staff who will be more knowledgeable than I am on this topic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I have another comment about parking for businesses and things like the farmer's market. I'm wondering, I know you said you're going to work with businesses, and I want to make sure that there are spots. I'll acknowledge over by the Treehouse Cafe, it's pretty hard to find a parking spot, so there's probably a need around there. But there are other spots where maybe it's not such a high need, and I want to make sure that these businesses are not negatively impacted by people feeling like they have to pay $10 for parking. And I also wonder if there's some provision. I know occasionally we've had farmers markets in different areas. If there's any way that we could potentially have parking fees be suspended during a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning farmers market over by the ballpark, if there's any sort of thought to that.
Yeah, certainly. I know right now where, if you're talking about the farmer's market, is it over there by Riverfront and Bridge?
There's been more than one. I think they used to have one right in front of the ballpark, and I sort of see there being potential for it to move around, right? There's other spots that you could potentially host one, and I don't know that we want to be charging for parking when people are going grocery shopping.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have the first 2 hours free of parking still at the Fifth and Bridge lot, which is 255 spaces. And then we also have the free parking in front of the barn, and that's 2 full city blocks on both sides. So we do have that available today. In terms of future, parking options, that's something that obviously, we work closely with the farmers market, and so we would address it at that time, depending on where it's at.
Okay.
And just to go back to the freeway lot that I was referring to, that we looked at that as a possible future location for a farmers market too.
Yeah. I would love to talk about the Broderick boat ramp, actually. I guess my first question is why parking fees there? What was the thought behind that?
Yeah, so the city, just for many years, we just received a lot of complaints about the park not being a safe place. A lot of the neighbors have complained to the city about unwanted activities there. It's just been a very long time, and so these fees are really overdue. If you look at the region, all the boat ramps, it's all paid parking. You got Discovery Park, which is just right across the river. That's all paid parking. City of Sacramento, they converted Sandco Park to paid parking. Nola Park, Garcia Bend, and so it's just really overdue. What we've heard from residents is that they don't want to go to Broderick Boat Ramp because it's unsafe. And so by implementing these, we're really looking to improve accessibility. We want to make sure that residents and visitors can go to Broderick Boat Ramp and safely enjoy the amenities there and be able to safely launch the boat and feel comfortable leaving their car there. So it's a lot of different goals here.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with Broderick Boat Ramp, and I actually I do ride through there, usually on a bike or on foot. I rarely park there. And so I'm familiar with encampments, I'm familiar with loose dogs, I'm familiar with the trash, these issues. I'll also note that the parking lot is usually empty, and I don't know if that's partly because it is unsafe, and I think we also had a comment about lack of access to the riverfront trail and parking for, folks that might want to go for a walk. I think it's relevant. I think it's an obvious place to park if you felt safe and you wanted to go fishing, or you wanted to go for a walk, or if you wanted to launch your kayak. Having said that, the activities that are unsafe that are going on there currently, if I'm not mistaken, are already not legal. So I'm struggling to understand how charging for parking is going to actually remedy this problem, or would it maybe perhaps be better to enforce existing ordinances against those kinds of activities? And this is like, I'm being agnostic about whether or not we should be pushing people around. I don't know where those folks would go, quite honestly. There's covered picnic areas, and there's toilets there. So it seems like a good place to live, honestly. As much as I think a lot of us don't feel safe there. At the same time, so I don't really want to get into that discussion, but I'm just not convinced that a new ordinance or parking fees is the best way to solve that problem. But perhaps you have insight that I don't have on that. I don't know if there's any comment on that.
You know that people, oh, can you hear me okay? Do you know that the people that are there frequently have vehicles with them?
I've seen a mix of both, just from my own experience. I can't speak to it fully because I'm not out there all the time. I'm sure our police department or homeless outreach team can certainly speak more to that. But yeah, from what I've seen, I think it's been a mix of both.
I would agree. I think there are some vehicles that people are living in that area. I also think there are some people that do not have vehicles, and that would probably continue to camp in that area without, the parking ordinance isn't going to really affect them. So, I'm not convinced that parking fees at Broderick Boat Ramp are the best way to solve that issue. I guess that's my comment. and the other observation is that Broderick it's rarely full, you know, and so I don't know if we want to be discouraging people from using that facility. It's one of, you know, it's one of the few places that you can get to the river with free parking. And there are very few places that you can park near the river. I think the next place to the north is, you know, at the entrance to the state park, and there's 4 spots there, and you have to walk. And then after that, you have to go all the way to Bright Park. And then beyond that, I think the next access that I can think of is perhaps in Southport. And so we do have very few places that people can access the river by parking. By walking, there are more, granted. And so I don't know if this is addressing a problem that currently needs to be solved. Now, if the case were that the boat ramp was constantly full and that people who were trying to launch boats were not able to access it, a different story, right? But I don't think the boat ramp is constantly full. And so that's my first comment. And again, I'm somebody who rarely parks there, but I do go through there a fair bit, and I would like to see people there. I would like to see more walkers there, honestly. I'd like to see more recreational users there, and I think the safety is probably the bigger issue, but I would hate to discourage people because of parking fees. I think the second question I have about the boat ramp, I agree. Every other boat ramp in the area does charge. I think that's accurate. I think some of them charge too much. Maybe not for a boat with a trailer, but for your user who is coming to walk a dog or go fishing or launch a kayak that they have on the top of their roof. I think $85 a year is too much, even for a resident. I think across the river, the American River Parkway, you can drive a car up, and I think the yearly fee is about $50 a month. In Yolo County, they have the Elkhorn boat ramp, which is way overpriced. And it's, I think the residential fee is like $110 a month, and nobody's ever there, right? Because it's too expensive. You know, I go there and I don't usually sneak in and don't pay for parking. I'll admit this because it's too expensive. And I would love to buy a monthly. I'm not going to buy a yearly pass for that price. And so I want to make sure that the pricing, if the city does decide to move forward with monthly parking fees, that we have some sort of very cheap rate. Like, you know, I think $85 for a car without a trailer is way too much for a single facility. Like, you know, when you consider that the entire American River Parkway, which has many facilities, is about $50 a year. So I'll just say that I think it's a little pricey for residents. I would like it to be safer for people to feel safe there. I'm just not convinced that parking fees are the right move right now. That could change, right? That could be something that we think about in the future if the demand is there. I'm just not convinced that it's the right move right now, personally. But I'll stop. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the only thing I want. Right now, go there. Set eyes. Also, road would help. Yeah. A lot of the problem that trying to be do that. Way they condemn that some degree.
Yeah, what I can say about that too is, you know, it's certainly not a silver bullet. When I was in Sacramento, I did the rollout for the paid parking at Sanco Park and Miller Park, and we did see a noticeable difference in terms of the activity there and, you know, just the different elements there. So I would say that it definitely helps, but yeah, absolutely not a solution that's going to solve everything. So.
I have a small comment just because what you guys are talking about. But is there a possibility of that if you do parking rates for Broderick? Is there a lot of people that fish at the boat ramp there? I would be concerned that would push it to Southport to the levee access, just because that's where I live, and we already have like an influx of people fishing and leaving trash, and it's becoming like a nightmare. And this is the wrong commission for that, but I would just be concerned that if it's driving people to a free option, and make it, the situation over there, make it a lot worse, so.
I'll say that, yes, there is a pretty substantial fishing population, especially on a Saturday or Sunday morning. You'll get, a couple dozen people, at least. Some of them park at the boat ramp and walk in, and some of them park, I think, near the state park entrance, which, 4 to 6 cars max can go there. And I'm glad that they fish, right? I'm glad that they use that space for recreating. And the state park has put out trash containers along the river, which I think is fantastic and has helped a lot with the trash being left behind. That it's not a 100%, but I think having public trash receptacles goes a long way to people using them. And again, I don't know that I would want to push these folks out. I don't know that. I think it is an activity that appeals to folks who are lower income. I think there are a lot of lower income folks that do like to go fishing, and the parking might be unaffordable for them. So yeah, I do have concerns. I'm less concerned about somebody who has a giant boat and a trailer, like they could probably afford it. But if somebody's coming along to go fishing, I think we need to consider whether that's affordable or not for them.
I would prefer if they go somewhere where it's regulated, there's trash cans, it's not a free-for-all, and people are accidentally causing fires and stuff like that. It just seems like a lot easier to regulate it from a place that's like city managed, things like that.
A quick question. Is there a specific department, or what is the destination ultimately for parking fees in West Sacramento?
Yeah, so it's actually in our municipal code, all the, at least the on-street parking fees, they go into the parking fund, and that can only be used for managing parking, and so it's restricted.
Okay, and it's from the discussion earlier. Is it right to hear that there are who is it? There's parking enforcement officers that are separate from the West Sac PD at large?
That's correct. So the city of West Sacramento and city of Sacramento entered into a contract for parking enforcement back in, I want to say 2015, 2016. And the motivation behind it was the Golden One Center was coming, and so parking was going to have a severe impact on the area. And so there were motivations on both sides to see increased enforcement, and so that's how everything came about. And that's what we have today.
Is it a contracted private company?
No, it's city of Sacramento staff.
Oh, okay. And are those city of Sacramento staff in kind of close contact or easy contact with West Sac PD?
Yes,
as far as
they
like
are.
radio contact or?
That's correct. On their radios, they have a channel. They swap to the West Sac Police channel when they're here in West Sacramento.
Is it reasonable to say that they can act as support for West Sac PD and the kind of activities we're talking about, kind of trying to belay?
Yeah, absolutely. All their vehicles are equipped with automatic license plate readers, so that helps detect things like stolen cars, other things like Amber alerts or wanted vehicles, and obviously, anytime you have someone in the city vehicle or in uniform, that presence helps a lot in terms of deterrence and just keeping everything in order.
And would there be any reason for those employees to visit someplace like the broader boat ramp for any reason besides parking fee enforcement?
We talked about utilizing the, I don't know what you call it, but there's a building there and it's currently vacant. And so we discussed in the past about using that as a potential offsite office for them, just so that we can just get some eyes out there, some boots on the ground, some presence. And I think that may be more of a reality with the park ranger program if we do get that online. And so there may be some other opportunities there.
Okay. And that was kind of all I had to ask for that. Just if there's other comments on that specific subject.
Yeah, actually, piggybacking off what you just said now, if there wasn't a parking fee there, would the park ranger program be possible there?
Well, the park ranger program, they can certainly enforce all the other codes in our books that are related to park, like camping or all the other stuff. So yeah, certainly they can still go in there and, make sure that everything's safe and orderly.
Just as a preference, I would like to see resources put more towards something like a park ranger program than a parking enforcement. As I do think you bring up some very good points with just accessibility. And just as my experience as a boater too, is just the Broad Arc boat ramp puts into a place where kind of small, unpropelled craft, the water's a little rough there for kayaks, is it? Am I
It's
wrong
not
with that?
ideal. No, it's not ideal. There's current but I think actually the greater problem is there's a lot of motorboats ripping up and down. It's not the
Yeah.
best place for kayaking. No, it's not.
It's a new passion of mine, so.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I usually get out before I get to the
Yeah.
convergence, but, yeah, just in terms of just, who is kind of using that ramp, and I haven't seen a lot, but I've seen some, but. And I guess one of the last things I wanted to ask about too is I noticed that in the materials that were provided, there's some verbiage about changing or updating speed limits. Is that, could you illuminate that, or say what changes and where that'll be?
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Christian Ascension, Associate Civil Engineer for the Capital Project Department. Part of the Title 10 update is to update the speed limit. And throughout, I believe, 4 years, 3-year process, we've been routinely doing speed changes and updating these speed limits as seen in attached. Was there a specific?
Yeah, what are they being changed to?
So most of them are following the 85th percentile of what the cars or what the vehicles are per segment. Mainly, most of them are increasing the speed to what the actual are. For example, Jefferson Boulevard, that's being increased to 55 miles per hour because that's what the speed is in that corridor.
Being raised from what, 45?
50, I believe.
50 to 55?
Mm-hmm.
We're raising the speed limit?
Yes, and that's part of California MUTCD.
Really? Is more speed something we really need on Jefferson Avenue?
Not necessarily, but
Like, is it something that the data suggests, but
Correct.
maybe
It's the
practicality would not?
correct. So we have had our consultant, Mont McDonald. We've been working with them for the last 3 years, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And we're just updating all the speed limits throughout the city to make it appropriate to what it actually is on the field.
Has this consultant said anything in what way the residents of West Sacramento would be benefited by a 5 mile per hour speed limit increase would be?
This is mainly just going off what is the law, California law. So we're just following routine procedures that the state has to do.
I find it unfortunate that that's the law requires that of you.
There are provisions in that in the code where if we deem it necessary, we don't have to raise the speed limits, but through further investigation and everything, and careful thought, these were what it does.
Are there other speed limit increases in other areas that are a part of this provision?
Yeah. So all of the ones in this one, current update, the speed limits are being changed.
What's that? Okay, yeah.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, we also have our traffic engineer, Jimmy Fong here. He's actually going to be doing a presentation for the next item. But if there are questions regarding speed limits and how they're actually collected, both Jimmy and Christian are available here to help answer your questions.
Okay. If there are provisions, I would recommend they be pursued. Thank you.
I wanted to maybe clarify the way I understood it from the last meeting is what I'm seeing here in the update. Every year you guys survey a certain area or something, right? based on code, and part of that gives you the authority also to enforce laws based on that. If you don't do this, you can't.
That is correct. So our police department cannot enforce speed limit and provide citations and tickets if the current speed limit is not up to date.
So the updates in here, though, are broken out by year. So you've done a lot of these that are in here that are changing were done in prior years, correct?
Correct.
And there's like, I don't know, half a dozen or so that are this year's adjustments, 2024, which we also went to council, right, Freddie, in February or something?
Correct.
So these have already are done deal, correct?
Right. These
Okay.
segments, each segment that we did is an adoption to the municipal code, so it had to go to council for approval. So all of these segments have been approved.
But you have to go through the process. If you don't do the process, then pretty much they can't write tickets and.
Correct.
Quick question, just more formality of this. And so, like some of these, they said like they were, tested in July 14, 2021 during COVID and things like that. Is there potentially that there was less people on there, they're driving faster, or is there anything to take consideration with like how the data is taken into effect? for
Right.
what's
So
going on?
we,
Yeah.
we take into account also the ADT, which is the daily traffic. When we deemed it that, for example, a certain segment, we saw that there was a drop of people who were home. We actually skipped that segment, and we're going to do that in a future year. So we're still catching up on some of them. But yes, we take into consideration.
I have two more parking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
you.
I did actually read quite a lot of this. One question was, there was a provision for not parking on any levees, and I'm curious as to whether or not that applies along South River Road between Sherwood Harbor and the Sacramento Yacht Club. I know if there's a road, there's a bit of asphalt there. People do park. They're probably not supposed to park, but again, this is probably fishermen. Are they going to get cited for parking between the two, or does that not apply because it's a road?
I'll have to take a look. Let me see if I can pull it up quickly here. But what I can say about that is we received a lot of complaints from residents. Obviously, the levee infrastructure is very important to our city. And so over the years, we've had a lot of vehicles that would park on the levee, specifically behind Drake, the barn over there. And they will be driving there. Sometimes if you're out there, you might even see them. But really, the target of this municipal code amendment to be able to enforce vehicles that park there. Right now, under the vehicle code, you'd have to actually catch them driving on the levee, and then a sworn officer has to pull over the vehicle and issue the driver a citation. And so what we want to do here is we want to allow staff to be able to enforce that, even if we can't catch them, at least if they're parked there, and issue the citation. The goal certainly isn't to sort of target any kind of like regular parking that you might see. So I would have to look at that section, that roadway, and see if it would apply. But I can certainly get back.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the other question I had was about private areas. There was somewhere in here, no parking on any unimproved surface, even on your own private land. And I think we have a lot of properties that are maybe more rural, like they may have dirt driveways. I think especially in Southport. And there was a mention about zoning, like it's illegal unless there's, it's outside a certain zone. And I'm just sort of curious about that too, because I do think we have some properties that are on the more rural side, and I don't want to be forcing everybody to put asphalt down for their farm tractors and that kind of thing.
Yeah, certainly. So this amendment does address that. I believe there's a provision in here where, hey, if your driveway was composed of dirt or gravel prior to zoning requirements that stipulate your driveway must be asphalt or concrete, then in that case, this section would not apply. What we're really targeting are, again, going back to Drake the Barn, we've had a lot of complaints about vehicles parking in the dirt areas over there. Obviously, the only way to access that is if they drive over a sidewalk and bike path and that, and then also just in the suburban areas, people parking on the lawns. That's unsafe. And there's a whole host of other issues. So we do have something in there about the driveways.
I just want to make sure that somebody isn't going to get in trouble for having their horse trailer next to their barn, something like that. But I guess that's my concern, but they may be outside the area. They may be in the zoned area for that sort of thing.
Yeah, and typically in other cities, that's not really like the goal of something like this. It's more so the typical suburban home, and there's a car parked.
Mhm.
That's really the kind of behavior that we're looking to curb and to address.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any other additional comments? I want to note that we are being asked to take an action on this, and the action is that we can recommend or not recommend that City Council adopt Ordinance 2417 as a group. And so I wanted to sort of point that out to you all and see if there's any discussion about that, or if we should just move straight to a vote. And I think it's okay. I'll say I think it might be all right if you want to discuss it beforehand, so that letting everyone know that.
Who with
Yeah, can we have a caveats, like say we vote on these sections and then sections pertaining to this and that? Perhaps we have to take a second vote, or is that something we could do?
It's up to the discretion of the commission. You are a recommending body, therefore you can make a recommendation conditioned upon what you believe are necessary priorities. You can also make a denial and provide comments as to why. So you're not a decision-making body. This is not something that is going to not move forward based on denial. In the past, we have seen the commission provide recommendation condition on X, Y, and Z. So I'll leave it up to the commission on what they believe to be the best way forward with that.
Let's talk about X, Y, and Z. Thank you, Mr. Roy. I'll let someone else start. If not, I can make a recommendation.
Well, I hear you about the cost, but I also like all like talk up forward.
It would help. I want to talk a little bit more about the park ranger program. I think that if that is something that's realistically going to happen soon, then maybe this problem will be solved without. But I mean, where is the park ranger program at?
Yeah, I can't speak to that because I'm not in the process or planning for that program. But I do know about that is that that's been talked about for, I want to say, maybe 2 years now, and I think that we're starting to get the ball rolling on that. Although I don't have a status I can provide. I'm sorry, but that is something that the city is very
Yeah, I am a bit conflicted because of I've biked through that area myself. I've biked that way to go to work, and I don't feel safe on a bike. And the park ranger program's really great, but I mean, I don't know what the funding would be for that, and a lot of things kind of maybe it would fall apart funding, but parking would be a way for they would be able to get money go there. So it would definitely certainly, I would think, to get more eyes out. So I'm conflicted because I do see the issue of, I mean, I've biking past there. It's pretty empty. You're right. Um, I've been by there on weekends too, and it doesn't really ever seem to get. I don't know if I've ever seen it completely filled up with cars. So that would definitely, I would think, deter people from parking. But then also, what if it does the opposite because people are feeling more safe, so they're more willing to go there because of more eyes out there for parking, and it could potentially do the opposite, where it actually brings people there, even though it costs. They feel more. So, yeah, just a little bit of discussion point going on in my head.
One possibility or concept, or someone who doesn't go this, but I've seen that I've done in other counties I've been in, is that a lot of these fees here are like vehicle with trailer, right? So the purpose is you're taking a boat there. That way, it kind of has that boat ramp concept, and then you have a vehicle only daily flat rate. Maybe there's a possibility that if you're a West Sac resident, then that could be through a registration process waived or some type of concept that way. That way, you have a perk of being a West Sac resident, and then you're also still getting that monetary amount from people with a boat. That because that way you're kind of splitting the two up. You want the boat ramp concept, but then you also want some type of rec and fishing and picnic or whatever. If you enable these things, then the area gets a little better because you either have to have a proof of residency or there's a daily rate. So I don't know. Could be something. I've seen other counties do that for different parks and things like that. So.
I mean, I would bring up the point that I don't think that there's much of a practice of removing a parking fee once it's instated, right? It's
Typically, once it's approved, it typically stays on the books unless there's a reason to remove it or adjust it. Like, for example, our meter fees, we had, it was always paid parking, but then we later introduced free parking for the first 2 hours. So that's something that we certainly talked about for Broader Boat Ramp is, there's a possible dog park there in the future. And among staff, we talked about, hey, what if we do the first 2 hours free? And so that's something that we're considering.
I like that more than a flat fee, and I don't know. I would actually recommend that we push off fees at the Broderick Boat Ramp to another time, another vote. But other than that, I think with that caveat, I'd be comfortable voting for this.
So right now, I'm going to propose to the commission that we have a vote on adopting this with the exception of fees on the Broderick Boat Ramp, at which we can add comments. I also wanted to flag, are there any comments regarding resident and/or lower income and/or senior monthly parking rate? We want to flop that one out, or what are folks thinking?
Yes, I think we should have also a caveat for passing this that there be reduced rates for seniors, especially senior West Sac residents who can prove residency of maybe as much as 50%. Like it deserves a big chop. I mean, they've really done a lot for our community. Most of our older residents are lifelong West Sac residents who have really done the hard work to build the city into what it is today.
I agree with the two caveats and would recommend moving forward with those two caveats for Broderick Boat Ramp and senior parking.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if we could have that stated in the form of a proposal for that. So
I'm going to do my best. Commission proposes to take a vote on adoption of ordinance 2417 with the exception of parking fees at Broderick Boat Ramp, and with a recommendation that the ordinance be revised to lower or eliminate fees for seniors who are residents and lower income residents at a minimum. That
Madam
suffice?
Clerk, were you able to get that as an official motion?
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, would you like to take a vote on that? Okay.
Again, I'm a little conflicted because I want to support getting eyes into that. So if we don't have fees there of any kind, boat ramp, you're not going to get enforcement in that zone, correct? Again, we're just doing a recommendation, but I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to vote on it.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So the only thing that's going to get enforcement in the Broderick Boat Ramp is if we put some sort of fee structure there.
In terms of parking, yes. So one thing I can say about that is, parking, it's always 24/7. Most drivers are gonna comply. But with the other items that we have in the books in terms of park regulations, obviously we're not gonna always have a law enforcement officer, whether that be police or a park ranger program. They're not always gonna be there. And so the parking we found is just one of the most effective tools cities have to manage those sorts of activities. But we do have the park municipal code that are in the books.
But again, that's one of the struggles we've had with enforcement there, is that PD is spread too thin. So
That's one other thing.
This was a methodology to get more eyes into that area.
That's right. That's one thing I forgot to mention that I've heard from our police department is that, obviously at the strain on resources when you have such a high amount of activity there, and we just, we have a recruitment issue, obviously, with our police department, just nationwide.
Kind of a force multiple, what it is. Another set of eyes. They're not going to obviously jump in when crime being committed, but it's set of eyes. It's also a way to move on people that may be.
That's correct. And yeah, we found that it's just one of the most effective ways, one of the most effective tools we have.
Trying to figure out if there's a way that we should edit the proposed vote, or
I am also conflicted. I'll vote for the same reasons.
yeah.
But I'm also concerned about putting a fee in place that will be very difficult to remove later on.
Let's add to that statement that the commission would like to see changes to the Broderick Boat Ramp proposal for increased safety that are not necessarily parking fees that apply to everyone at this level. I'm not sure if that we can add that. I'm not sure how we would add that, but.
Madam Chair, I would ask that the clerk, just for my own knowledge here, repeat the motion made by Zimmer and seconded by Commissioner McCredit. But I need to hear if he's seconding the changes, or if there is a different person that's seconding.
So the initial two caveats were reduce the parking for both low-income residents and senior residents within the city of West Sacramento. And then this second, excuse me, is to hold off on the parking fees at the Broderick Boat. So.
I want to, I believe your question was that these parking fees will be the only way that enforcement will happen at the Broderick Boat Ramp. I mean, I would have to say probably no. I mean, if somebody calls the police, to respond to an incident at the Broderick Boat Ramp, enforcement would happen.
In terms of order of magnitude and scope, West Sac PD, and again, that's why Measure O is trying to provide some additional resources for the PD, but I've been through there several times and a couple times called, and it's like, you're just not going to get a response because of the other things that are going on. We had, a couple of weeks ago, we had a fortunate incident, traffic incident where somebody got killed off in industrial, and there's a couple other accidents. And West Sac PD was totally tied up for, any other issue because of those. And again, I think their concept is that it's a way to get eyes into that area, try to make it a little less sketchy by moving on people that normally wouldn't get moved on because in the regular routine, they rarely get. We've all said that there's not a lot of traffic there, so I mean, people that do the boat ramp already, so the fee itself isn't going to impact a huge number of people either. So I struggle with that part too. It's not going to be a money generator per se. I think the whole concept is they're trying to get some bodies over there on a regular basis for a different reason and have some level of authority to check out cars, see what they're doing, look, make sure that they've paid, and that's going to be a deterrent to people that don't want to have eyes on what they're doing.
I don't think the fees that would be collected at Broderick Boat Ramp are going to pay for the parking enforcement at Broderick Boat. I think it's going to lose money either way. So is there a way to get parking enforcement without fees to Broderick Boat Ramp on a daily basis to enforce other ordinances? I suspect there are other ordinances that are in that the folks that are loitering, I guess, in that area are in violation of. Is there a way to have the parking folks go over there anyway, even if they're not collecting fees?
I can comment on that. So we are pretty limited in terms of other restrictions we can implement out there. So for example, you can implement something like a time limit. So let's say you do a 4-hour time limit. You can certainly implement something like that. But then you do get into the issue of resources and we already are short on staffing for even parking enforcement. And, a 4-hour time limit is a little bit more difficult to enforce because of just the long-term length of it. So you do get into some of those issues, but that can certainly be a possibility. And 4-hour limit, the other issue with that is that sometimes it may not be long enough for certain folks. Certain folks may want to be there much longer, especially if it's a holiday. And folks are out on the river boating, and so there are a lot of other nuances to it.
What if parking were free for 2 hours and after 2 hours you have to pay?
That's right. So that's something that I mentioned earlier. Is that's something that we're looking at as a possibility if we were to ever do a dog park at Broderick Boat Ramp. It could be that maybe just a section of the park is free for the first 2 hours, and then the rest, is boat trailer parking and other regular vehicle parking. And so it's there are a lot of options.
Or maybe even a section that isn't just free for the first 2 hours, but you can only park there for 2 hours, 2-hour limit. So that continually, not actually, I mean, there's not really an issue with people filling it up anyways. So
Yeah.
But I mean, if there was a dog park, it might eventually start to get filled up.
The only issue I'm concerned with is that obviously being in parking for a long time is that we know people like to play the shuffle game where they would park in the 2-hour spot and then they would move the car to the 4-hour spot and do that game all day. So obviously there are some issues with that, and so it would sort of be able to, drivers who want to play the game would be able to circumvent them, but yeah, that's certainly an option, but there are drawbacks to it.
I think I like the carrot versus the stick. Having a dog park built there, especially a dog park with access to water, would probably bring in more traffic to the Broderick Boat Ramp. And more traffic, I think, would make it safer. So I like the idea of building infrastructure that people want to use as a way of increasing safety. I still think having a couple hours free would probably alleviate most of my concerns about access for folks who want to go for a walk or launching a kayak or fishing, because most of those folks are probably only going to be there for a couple hours. At the same time, if somebody wants to spend all day long on the river with their motorboat, then they're going to have to pay for parking. And so I don't think people are going to drag a boat trailer and be there less than 2 hours. It's kind of a big commitment to put your boat in the water. And so I think that could be a potential, I think, compromise. What do the commissioners think?
I like that. I like that, first 2 hours free. I think be good. And then the rest, then week card. That'll get the parking enforcement out.
Would the 2 hours free just be for like single vehicles? Because, I mean, like I said, they're boat with a trailer, they're not going in for taking that long to get in and out. So, you know, but I wonder, I guess it still gives them the same ability to check on vehicles there, check whether they're within their 2 hours or not. Still bodies in there. Is there anything that PD was hoping for just to keep the guys coming in? Again, I think one of the things they're trying to keep was going in there and drug 2 hour free. Well, 2 hours. Sling my stuff. I mean, you know.
Are there any provisions for 3 or 4 hour options free?
For free parking, certainly you can expand it upon the first 2 hours, but then again, you know, anything beyond 2 hours, you're kind of getting into like other activities and like commission pointed to. So there are some drawbacks to everything, and
Is the plan for kind of pushing more parking enforcement to the Broderick boat ramp specifically the preference of West Sacramento PD?
yeah, so
They
they
expressed that?
their strong recommendation to me and to other city staff is that they want to implement paid parking out there, and that's actually probably the main driving force, besides the residents who live around the Broderick boat, who are a lot of fishing on a daily basis, overnight, and week.
Could it be 2 hours free and then the day, and then is there an option to have no parking past, I don't know, a certain amount of time after sunset?
Yeah, so I believe there's something in the municipal code right now already on that. But one of our plan for Body Boat Ramp is that we would restrict overnight parking similar to what other parks do. And I think it's currently in our municipal code, but we would sign it and we would have that. So yeah,
It's already 1 hour after sunset. Just walk by there. They just think about this. Want to see what posters were there and overnight camping or what? But it said 1 hour, no parking 1 hour after.
Did they close a gate for that thing or
No.
yeah. Today, I believe I think all the gates are manual. And one of the things with the park ranger program that the city will look to do is possibly have the park ranger staff manually lock and unlock the gates, or even possibly have automatic gates like some other jurisdictions have.
Do motorboat operators go out for more than one day? I mean, I'm not sure. Like, is there
go down to the bay or something?
yeah, go out in the Delta, come back
Cool.
a couple days later. I'm not sure I want to prohibit that. But
I do have concerns that the parking enforcement presence and the park rangers would at some point become redundant, or they're just, they're there to do the same thing. And so, it's at some point, when is it an unnecessary city expenditure to have two agencies trying to police the same area to support the West Sec PD?
Why
I can,
couldn't one just take, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. Why Well, why couldn't one just take over, like when the park
Be a
ranger
transition.
programs start?
Well, I can comment on that. So based on my experience, the park rangers like to focus on other activities, like especially if it's a holiday, they want to check, coolers for alcohol. They want to do other things. They're not interested in parking. That's the last thing they want to do. And so, really, what we're talking about here is park rangers are focused on, a lot of the different types of infractions, misdemeanors. I think they can even enforce some felonies. And then park enforcement would focus on the parking infractions. And so they sort of complement each other. Like, for example, at Miller Park, the park rangers would contact the people who are standing around while parking enforcement tickets the cars. So, yeah, there's a complement thing there, and they work closely together.
Plus, there's 30 some odd parks in West Sacramento spread across the whole city, and I think we're only getting maybe one or two if we get anything with this park ranger program. It's not like you'll be able to hang out there all day. There's going to be other issues, other parks.
That's right. What we've heard from other jurisdictions that, the park rangers, they're stretched thin sometimes, and they're just running around the city all day and everything. So, anything would helpful in terms of additional staff.
And then another thing to note is this would make enforcement happen much sooner. I mean, you're saying that this would be implemented in, I think you said earlier, 2025?
That's correct. That would be the soonest. And the park ranger program, we've been talking about it for a while now, and it still hasn't happened. I don't believe we have any funding for it allocated. So, this is real. This could happen versus the park ranger program that's still up in the air.
This would, be with that caveat of the first shower is free. People walk the dogs and people going for a quick fishing trip or date. Not a whole day. Yeah, I like it with the first shower is free. It seems like it gives, the people that want to do these activities there have the ability to go without it impacting their pocketbook, but then we also can feel safer potentially with the enforcement. It's a nice compromise.
Does the commission feel any strongly on the 3 or 4 hour limit? Is that too much?
I do think so because of the concerns about people that are doing illegal activities out there. I mean, they're going to be, I think that they would need to be there for a while because they're trying to wait for their people to come and do the deal, But if you're making it 3-4 hours, then it's just a longer period of time that you can't enforce it.
I think I agree with Commissioner Zuniga about the 2-hour limit. I do have one question. If somebody were to buy an $85 park permit, what's to prevent them from just not living there?
Yeah, certainly that's a concern as well. The thing is that we do have the overnight parking restriction that we can implement, so that would, sort of help clear out the park at night. And we do have other ordinances in our book that can fully address that.
But actually, just the 85 is just for resident, right? So you'd have to have resident.
They'd be a resident now. They'd be a resident.
Does resident mean having an address in the city?
110.
Dumb question. I don't know.
I think that's a good reason to not have overnight parking.
Yeah.
All right. I would like to amend the previous statement regarding the Broderick boat ramp to state that the commission supports parking fees at the Broderick boat ramp, but with the caveat that the first 2 hours should be free. That simple enough?
There a second on that
For a
motion?
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you like to take a vote? Or do we need to read back what we're voting on? We probably do.
I would suggest if you can say what all of the amendments, the caveats,
I'll do my best.
just for the record.
The commission will be taking a vote on recommending that ordinance 24-17 be adopted, with the caveats of allowing at least 2 hours of free parking at the Broderick Boat Ramp, and considerations for residents who are seniors or lower income to be to have far reduced monthly parking fees and or eliminate monthly parking fees for those folks. Does that sound about right?
And I'm sorry, but ordinance 2417 addresses the municipal code, whereas the actual book of fees is under a separate
Okay.
resolution 24-114. So I'm not sure if we need to make
Okay.
that distinction or not.
Quick question, sorry to keep making this complicated. If you did a like reservation system where, it's still free, but it may mitigate a lot of the people going there for quick situation things, if we're trying to minimize that as well. Like if you did that, that could be something. If it's a reservation, but still you make it 1 to 4 hours or whatever we decide, but that reduces the free 3 to 4 hours or 1 hour people using it for certain situations. I don't know. And it may help with July 4th and things like that, like those critical holidays. If it's just free, it may be a madhouse. I don't know. I don't know if it is, but it could help with like those special weekends and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, other jurisdictions do charge a higher rate, specifically Sacramento County. They charge a premium when it's a holiday. Other cities like Sacramento, they'll charge a higher rate between like spring and fall, and then a lower rate between fall and winter. So there are definitely options out there.
Is enforcement of that reservation system something that can get parking enforcement out there?
For the reservation system, that's in the current proposal, that's more tied to the Ziggurat Garage and Ace parking, Rivercats parking. And so we wouldn't offer reservations at the broader boat ramp because they're sort of two different concepts. So that wouldn't necessarily apply there. Although, we can certainly offer that. But then again, you get into the issue of, okay, you got to make sure that there's a space there at the broader boat ramp. For someone who reserves a space there, and then you have to worry about staffing and So,
Yeah, I think
Sounds like a cheap way to get
It also-
enforcement out there. Though, if that is the ultimate goal
Well, there
of this
could be
whole
an
process,
there
is
could
to get enforcement out there.
There could be an accessibility issue with that,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
People that aren't as savvy
Yep.
is it a requirement to reserve? Is that what we're proposing? Because I feel like that's an accessibility issue.
It may go over the heads of bad actors.
We don't have reservations now.
no, we don't.
Doing it, Ziggurat, be a couple of the other parking lots. It'd look,
Yeah, it will be the first first thing that we first time we applied it here in West Sacramento, but it's been done a lot at other jurisdictions. So it's a tried and true concept, but it's first time that we would get
be
placed.
effective. The volume, that's kind of the concept. To make it easy, because you're trying to get people in and out.
Correct. We
It's
want
more
to.
of a traffic management.
That's correct.
Do a lot of other places use reservation systems for boat ramps and parking, things like that?
Not that I'm aware of. When we looked around, at least this region, Sac County, Sac City, Yolo County, and they don't have anything. The closest thing they have is a monthly permit, which we're going to.
Just trying to find that sweet spot of mitigating people using it for certain transactions really quickly and also making it free while we have documentation. Because you make a reservation, you have a name, you have eventually a vehicle, things like that. So people aren't going to be willing to do that. But I don't know if there's a way of doing that.
When you say certain transactions really quickly, are you referring to the illegal activities?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to find a way of like mitigating, keeping it free, but we want to know who's there. That way, anyway, I don't know.
It just seems like the people that are spending time there for illegal activity, it seems like they're there for long periods.
Okay.
I have a question. After 2 hours, what would the parking rate be at the Broderick Boat Ramp under this suggestion?
Well, with the change, it would probably be the $7 flat rate. Is
An hour?
probably going to be the best. Oh, not an hour. It'll be a flat rate that will be
Oh.
valid until the whatever the nighttime overnight restriction. Right.
So there wouldn't be an option to do by the hour, like, yeah, like, so how would it be 2 hours free? How
So
would that work?
it'll operate similar to what we have out in the Bridge District, which when you park, you would start your transaction. Your first 2 hours would be free, and then if you decide at that point, or when your time expires, to extend your time, then at that point you will charge the fee, whatever the fee may be. In terms of an hourly rate, that's not something that is typically offered at boat ramps, so we didn't offer it here. It was more of a flat rate that aligns with the regional rate.
So essentially, it would be either 2 hours free or $7 for the whole day. Those are the
Correct.
options.
So you would, you park, and then your first 2 hours are be free, and then if you decide to stay longer than 2 hours, then you would charge that $7 at that point. That's
If you don't do it, get a ticket.
potentially, yeah, one thing about the implementing parking regulations is that we really rely on folks complying. For paid parking, the compliance rate typically is pretty high. And this is sort of a secret, but not really, in terms of the capture rate, which is what we call when a ticket is actually issued for a violation. It's very low. It's about less than 5% is what we estimate. So, really, we're what we're counting on is people to comply.
It can act as a bit of a scarecrow, right? And I'd imagine too, if you using the Park Mobile system, you do then have a record of the license plates if there are, and PD can use that to track activities like we're speaking about.
That's correct, and that's been really helpful in previous cases, just nationwide too. So.
Would Commission be willing to drop that to $5 from $7? It's not free, but it's...
I still like
Would-
I
sorry.
still like a couple hours free because I'm thinking about somebody that comes there 3 times a week to walk their dog.
No, I mean like 2 hours free, but after that, dropping it from 7 to 5.
Well, what is the reason for $7?
So that was without the 2 hours free, because that would be a first in the region. But the $7 was to match, align with the regional rates at Discovery Park, Mellow Park, all the other parks.
Seems reasonable.
And those ramps are bigger and have more facility.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm trying to get as close to free as I can.
I would like to propose that we take a vote on the previously recommended action, which was to adopt ordinance 2417 and the fee ordinance. I'm sorry, I don't remember the number.
Resolution 24-114.
Yep, with the caveats of finding a way to have significantly reduced monthly parking rates for resident seniors and low-income folks, and to also recommend that the first 2 hours at the Broderick Boat Ramp be free. And afterward, I know we've had a lot of discussion, but I'm going to say no changes.
As long as it doesn't, they find out that the 2-hour thing somehow changed the nature of that.
Trying to think how I can work that in. And encourages the city to continue to work toward enforcement and safety at the Broderick Boat Ramp, which is to say, if this isn't working, we can revisit it.
in the fine print is a way of doing it as like the first 2 hours are free for the area, so they're not trying to switch spots. Can we just write that in there? That
the
it's
whole
just, it's
area.
for the,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, legality,
spot.
final legality, whatever, yeah.
You can't move spots.
Yeah.
The entire, entire park. Madam Clerk, does that make sense?
That's sufficient for me, Mr. Secretary.
I think I understand. I think it's sufficient.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner McCrudden? Commissioner Zuniga?
Aye.
Commissioner Cummings?
Aye.
Chair Zimmer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rohr?
Aye.
Commissioner Ford?
Aye.
And with that, the recommendation with all the caveats has passed. And we are going to move on in our agenda tonight.
Thank you for the thoughtful discussion and feedback.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're on the regular agenda. First of all, does anyone need a break? We need to take a break. Hearing anybody running off to the, okay, I think we're good. All right, so consideration of coordination with the California Department of Transportation on the Enterprise North Park and ride conversion to a multimodal mobility hub. And we have a staff presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the commission. We just finished talking about parking, so let's talk about parking. So I have a presentation here to help facilitate this discussion. It always takes me a second to make sure I know how to work this. Here we go. So I'd like to just jump into project necessity. So the location of this is at the intersection of West Capitol Boulevard and Enterprise Boulevard. It's the existing Caltrans Park and Ride, known as the Enterprise North Park and Ride. We were recently contacted by Caltrans to look into what they wanted to prioritize as a project for updating that existing park and ride to a mobility hub. So I've provided some slides here. The city and YOLO TD, which is the YOLO County Transportation District, met with Caltrans online and talked about some of the proposals of the California Department of Transportation and what they'd like to see happen on site. They recommended a few things, but both YOLO TD and the city, which was myself, believed that the recommendations that Caltrans were making did not conform with expectations of either YOLO TD or the city as dictated by our own municipal code for parking lot development, things like trees, for urban heat island reduction, screening of parking, provision of electric vehicle charging. A lot of those items, though were identified by Caltrans, were not actually shown in their plans. So we had recommended that they go ahead and make those modifications. We did receive a welcome from Caltrans to consider an alternative plan, to which YOLO Transportation District and the city worked over the course of the next week to come up with those recommendations in order to present them to Caltrans, and then we set up a subsequent meeting. One of the things to note is that Caltrans was actually just thinking inside of their own Caltrans parcel, whereas the city actually owns 2 remnant parcels, as well as the right-of-way adjacent to the Caltrans Park and Ride. We also have another roughly 1/3 of an acre parcel with limited access on the other side of the I-80 eastbound off-ramp that we had mentioned might want to be considered, as well as existing infrastructure in road. There's a lack of bike lanes there, et cetera. So we encourage Caltrans to think not just inside the box, but outside and look at the entire area holistically. I'm sorry, this still is taking a second. Oh, going the wrong way. Here we go. Location. So as I just identified on your screen in front of you is the Caltrans Park and Ride that's represented by the larger parcel in the center of the screen there that's multi-sided, where the existing parking is located. The two small parcels that are just off to the west of that existing park and ride are actually owned by the city. And right now, you will see during peak demand a lot of cars illegally parking in that location, and unfortunately, that forces them to back into traffic on a very sharp turn, which is also obscured by the I-80 overpass. So it is a dangerous condition to have folks parking on the city lots there. It's also an unpaved surface, and as you just heard, that is against the city code. We also have the existing limited access lot to the east of the park and ride there. That's that 1/3 parcel that's also owned by the city. One of the things that we were considering for that lot is the fact that we do have West Sacramento On Demand, our VIA transit system. Right now, we park vehicles off of South River Road in an area that does not have any shading, doesn't have any trees, doesn't have any power. But we do have a secured gate in that location, so it allows folks who are driving our on-demand vehicles to enter in, park their vehicles there, and then take one of the VIA vans do their routes and then come back. We were considering this site because there is power there. There's also more amenities for our drivers there. They can go across the street, get something to drink. And it also would enable us to provide for a transition to electric vehicles in the future for our transit fleet. So being that there's power on site there, we could easily look at options for transitioning to EVs in the future. So we wanted to explore that lot as part of this mobility hub for a wide variety of options. So it could be integrated in mobility hub, it could be parking for our city vehicles. So this is just a few photos I'm going to go through very quickly. As you can see, there's a lot of illegally parked vehicles there that are within the city's lot off of the public right-of-way, but still not a good location for parking there. On a regular basis, this park and ride lot is full during peak hours. You can see here's another photo. Every parking space is full. So one of the objectives here was for us to look at ways of increasing efficiency. That is one of the ways that we differed from the Caltrans plan that did not look at any parking efficiencies or changes. Both YOLO TD and the city agree there is a need for this, and that's where integration of the two city remnant lots will come in handy, allow us to expand that park and ride and actually have a lot more efficiency. Here's another photo as well. This is actually West Capitol, where it intersects with the entrance to the park and ride and Enterprise. As you can see, there are no bicycle lanes in this area. There are no street trees. There's really a deficit of amenities and a lack of city or urban beautification in the area, and this is one of the gateways for the city of West Sacramento. This is the facing west. This is the on-ramp for I-80 and the bend into Enterprise from West Capitol. This in the image is showing a crosswalk there that's identified. That is the bike lane that goes behind the Chevron, behind Arco there, and then connects to Enterprise in that one crosswalk. I need to note that, as I identified in your staff report, back when the environmental impact report was completed for the YOLO 80 project, there were a number of recommendations that Caltrans had, their own staff had identified, needed to be integrated in this area for safety purposes. Rapid flashing beacons, enhanced crossings, bike lanes, etc. All of those were taken out of the EIR and never advanced. And so the city had, on repeated basis, asked Caltrans to please integrate their own recommendations into their own environmental document. Unfortunately, those did not proceed, and that's what prompted the city staff to say, hey, we really need to take control of some of these things, because the comments from Yolo County Transit and from the city are going unheeded. So that's where we actually had funding allocated by the city council for what was the Lake Road Mobility Hub. During the EIR process, Caltrans had stated that they were interested in putting in a mobility hub. Unfortunately, it turned out to just be a 300-space parking lot with no trees, no electric vehicle charging, et cetera. So this is where we're asking to, again, take control and integrate this project into our existing project, and that is the Enterprise Corridor and Bridge Crossing project, of which this park and ride is actually already within the environmental footprint of that project. So the concept plan, again, this is the site plan. After we had spoken with Caltrans initially, YOLO TD, Brian Abenat, who's their planning director there, and myself had a chat along with his staff and my staff, and we all decided we were going to do a little mini charrette, and between us decide what it is we would like to see happen in this area if we were in charge of helping to develop it. So we went back and forth online, talked about concepts, things we'd like to see, and what came about was this plan here. And I apologize that the city lot is kind of cut off, but what's shown on the city lot to the farthest east is roughly 30 parking spaces with lighting, etc. On the park and ride itself, we were able to, by integrating the two remnant parcels and the right-of-way that's already in existence there into the project, we were able to see a pretty dramatic increase in efficiency in parking. I believe it's around 13%. I have statistics in a second. We were able to roughly double the amount of bicycle parking through integration of bike lockers. We were able to put in a little bit more efficient turning movements in there by having a one-way out and integrating a rideshare pickup drop-off area. So if Via comes in or somebody calls an Uber or a Lyft, they can just swing around, park there. It's ADA accessible, and that way, we've got a little bit of a more secure eyes on the road space for folks who are waiting there for a ride. In addition, we are showing some EV charging. Those are the spaces directly to the south there that are marked with little green boxes there. That also includes disabled parking that's also EV accessible and van accessible EV charging. And overall, we were also able to get more landscape throughout. So right now there's just no street trees. So being able to integrate some of the landscaping in these changes, get some canopy trees in there and have a little bit more shade was a big priority, and also part of city code when it comes to developing parking. So to show you how that looks, we dropped some of the trees in here. This is just conceptual, but just to kind of show how the trees themselves can help shade the parking lot itself. I'm going to go back one more time, talk about a few things on the street. As most of you are probably aware, when you go on Enterprise and you go underneath I-80, there's a lane on each side going northbound and southbound. In some discussions with Fair and Peers early in the process of initiating the Enterprise Corridor and Bridge Crossing, I'm just going to call it Enterprise Bridge, there was some discussion about possibly the southbound lane may not necessarily need two lanes of traffic. That is huge for us, because that means right now there's no space for any bike lanes underneath there, and there's only one 5-foot sidewalk going underneath I-80. So this would enable us to actually put in a two-way cycle track, which is really important, because if we are planning on putting a bridge that's going to connect to Southport, and because you've got the YOLO Causeway there, and a lot of folks that still ride back and forth to Davis and beyond, into Sacramento and West Sacramento, it's really important to get that connectivity. And there's really not a whole lot of ways you can get connectivity without removing a lane. So we are still going to have to study it. That's why it's also important that we integrate this project into that enterprise bridge project so that we can look at it in a holistic manner and understand what are the impacts, what side of the street do we want to go on, et cetera. So there's a lot of things for us to look at. Lastly, on here, we were able to squeeze in a bike lane on West Capitol itself, connecting to the improvements that were already done recently. And that's because a lot of those lanes out there are very, very wide. So understanding that this was originally developed as accommodating Caltrans and truck traffic, still is going to accommodate truck traffic, but you do not need 14-foot travel lanes out there when you can easily get away with 11 or 12-foot travel lanes, which are standard on arterial roadways. So by reducing the width of some of those roadways, we're able to put in a 5-foot bike lane. So that's just in concept. Of course, we need to go out there and actually do some surveys and really start digging into it. But as a concept plan, we feel pretty confident that we can come up with solutions there. And then finally, the existing bus stop, I really wish I had a pointer here, laser pointer. For those that might know where the existing bus stop is that's westbound, it's actually in the middle of the stacking. So you see that big line of cars that are up there at the top. The bus stop is right by that group of trees over in just south of the gas station canopy.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked with YOLO TD about doing is, hey, would it work for you guys if we move that out of the stacking area? And they said, yeah, if we could get a transit priority signal phase in there, that would be great, because then, we're stopped at the signal. Transit signal says, yes, you can go. That means the bus can go through, and then the vehicles would follow. So that's one of the other recommendations that we put in here. It also enables us, by dropping one of the lanes that's just on the east side of the I-80 off-ramp there, we were able to squeeze in a bike lane going not only to where it currently stops, which is at the Class 1 bike trail that goes behind the gas station. It would allow us to extend it all the way up to the intersection. That means folks who are parked at the mobility hub would be able just to cross the crosswalk, instead of having to go all the way around the gas station, all the way back, cross over Enterprise, and then get back in the mobility hub. So we're trying to do what we could in this concept to look at it as a bicyclists and pedestrians first concept. And then, making sure that traffic operations are still optimal for vehicles as well. So again, there's our landscape. This was originally shown as part of our enterprise bridge project as some of the things that we were looking at with that project in order to be considered, which also included the whole location of the park and ride, and included looking at what do we do with connectivity on Enterprise and how do we connect to West Cap. So again, we're already looking at this as part of the Enterprise Bridge project. We would just be expanding the scope to include park and ride itself. But again, showing how the bike ped connectivity can occur. The area in blue there that goes underneath I-80, that tends to flood. So it's not a solution for long-term purposes. Anybody who's gone out there knows that is not a safe condition to wade through with your bike. It's also not currently an open access area, but we are going to be talking with Caltrans about, hey, can we open that up on a seasonal basis to provide folks with a way to get, a different way to go around that's not necessarily an urban path, but more of a visually pleasing scenic ride. On the wrong way. And then here's some concept hub features that we were looking at. I just keyed them in with photos again, just kind of going around, adding more landscape, making sure that we have rapid flashing beacons to help with pedestrian crossings, making sure we're identifying the mobility hub with monument signs, putting in our W signature arterial West Cap bus stops. Again, I talked about the rideshare area. We want to make sure we've got scooters and bike parking out there. So looking at this as a full mobility hub, not a park and ride with amenities. So this is supposed to be looking at it again, bikes and peds first, and then looking at kind of equal access. So here's the statistics. The existing park and ride is 93 spaces, 4 accessible parking spaces, and 8 bike lockers. We're proposing a 15.5 increase in vehicle parking, which I think is pretty, and this does not include the city-owned site, the 1/3 acre on the other side. This is just the mobility hub itself. Again, there's another 30 spaces over there if we were to make that open in the future. I think that we, just in concept, achieved a pretty dramatic increase in efficiency and utilization of this park and ride. The policies that are guiding this, again, the Enterprise Corridor and Bridge Crossing Project, already approved project in our capital improvement program. We have already kicked that off, and I'm going to give a little bit of information on that right now. Also, the West Sacramento Mobility Action Plan actually calls this park and ride out as a future mobility hub for the city, and our Bike Ped Trails Master Plan are guiding documents for looking at on-road connectivity. So the Enterprise Corridor and Bridge Crossing Project, I know you probably know a lot about it already because we have talked about it, but it has launched. This corridor and the bridge crossing itself has been planned since I was born. So it's been a while. It's been in the city's general plan since the 1990s. We recently did an update for the 2035 general plan and looked at the traffic congestion in Southport as it continues to grow. We must have this bridge if we are going to continue to grow and remain viable for folks to get in and out. Recently, I had applied to the state to make this a climate priority project. It was accepted into the statewide resilience improvement plan just for the fact of having emergency evacuation in the event of flood or fire. Considering that we do not have multiple ways out of Southport, this is absolutely an essential project. So the Enterprise Corridor and Bridge Crossing, the purpose and need is extensive. Mitigates traffic congestion is one of the biggest ones. Improves regional connectivity, that is huge, especially for bikes, peds. Improving freight movement, it connects 2 of our major industrial areas, and a huge side benefit is you will not be tearing up Southport Parkway in order to get from one industrial area to the next. It also significantly reduces vehicle miles traveled, especially heavy truck traffic, and actually results in less emissions with construction of the bridge. So it also has multiple climate benefits as well. So this is just an overview showing the actual corridor itself, study areas from Southport Parkway all the way north to West Capitol Avenue. We are in the middle of data collection for this, and that's why it's absolutely a great time for us to integrate the mobility hub into this, because now we can just expand the scope at a minimal cost and have maximum benefit out of that. So where we're at right now, as I just mentioned, we're in the feasibility study phase, just kicked that off. In early next year, by spring, we should be done with our feasibility analysis, and then we start kicking off environmental in earnest. Your recommendation is actually going to be going to the City Council on December 4th, because it's not the only thing that we're looking to do. The port actually needs something called a tidal sensor. It's one of the things that's required to be integrated with the bridge in order to know what the water level is of the ship channel. So the National Oceanographic, it's NOAA, I believe, has a recommendation, or not a recommendation, a requirement to have that. So the port is actually contributing funding to get that tidal sensor put into our project. The mobility hub is another one. That's why I'm coming to you. And the last part of it is NEPA. So the U.S. Coast Guard has agreed to be the NEPA lead agency, which means we no longer have to wait to get federal funds in order to kick off the NEPA process, which is the national environmental process. So we officially can kick this off by adding the NEPA scope into our overall budget. So there's going to be 3 items going to the City Council on December 4th. And that ends my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and I would love your comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCoy. Commissioners?
I have a personal matter I need to attend to. I need to leave. Is that all
okay.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
Steve, thank you for being here.
Just for clarification, so initially started out, there was going to be a park and ride at Lake Road.
Correct.
He kind of blew us off. That's still going to move forward?
So in the EIR-EA, that it was adopted, and then a lawsuit was pending for that. It did identify that 300 space park and ride in that location. So as far as that, whether or not that's going to move forward or not, that's
Subject to litigation.
entirely up to the legal process to see if it is in fact determined that the EIR-EA is valid. And if so, it would be up to Caltrans to decide to, one, acquire the property, because that is private property, and then two, they'd have to work with the city, design that out. And again, our comments are still going to be the same. This needs to be a mobility hub. So if we do wind up moving forward with this as a mobility hub and changing that park and ride, we're not going to be as concerned about what happens to that park ride in the south, except that it is developed in accordance with city code. So as long as we have a mobility hub in the area, we're going to be okay.
Also, in your document, you talked about one of the requirements was the connection between that park ride and the mobility hub. And so right now you're scoping it out to go under the bridge there with those two lanes, right?
That's
That would
correct.
kind of
So
be that connection under there, but if that doesn't happen, will the EIR or what you're doing now look at other alternatives? That one of them was boring under or something, and
So that's that exhibit that I showed you that showed the blue path, et
Right.
cetera. So we're going to look at trying to maximize connectivity as much as possible under and, around the I-80 corridor. Some of the things I'm showing in there are, again, those recommendations that Caltrans had initially made for the YOLO 80 project. We are requiring that those be looked into and adopted into the study for what would be the enterprise and for the mobility hub, simply because if Caltrans own folks say they need to do this, then we agree, yes, you do need to do this, that there needs to be a safety approach to this, to connecting both the southern part of I-80 with the northern part of I-80. If it turns out that no, from a traffic standpoint, there would be excessive congestion that results in, too many impacts associated with reducing that lane, well, we're gonna have to figure something out. So that's where studying this that is a concept plan, and we think we can do it in concept, but where the rubber meets the road, we're really gonna have to study that out, figure out with our traffic analysis.
but so this mobility portion, they came to you, so why are they willing to play on this one and not on the other? I mean, maybe a point.
I would have to speculate that there may have been some funding that may have become available through another program. Something has shifted where they're able to take an existing asset and look into making improvements a la mobility hub.
So by doing this portion, the 30% design and wherever you're taking it to, and the EIR component, do you think that will move that forward faster versus how they were going to approach it? Or?
So this request there's a couple of things. So one is we had already been allocated the money for the Lake Road Mobility Hub, and working to guide Caltrans toward making the right decisions. I'm asking that we transfer that to the north to do exactly the same.
Right.
The good part here is that we have an existing project in the Enterprise Bridge that already encompasses that area, that we can just expand the scope so that the project approval and environmental document phase, so the environmental document and preliminary engineering, can be controlled by the city. So what that does in turn, and I'm hoping that if we execute an agreement with Caltrans that this will be one of the things that we're able to identify, is that instead of them having to pay for the environmental process, we've already done it. And by the way, here's all the recommendations that we need to have move forward. Here's all the community engagement that we've done that says, y'all need to do this. And, here's the preliminary engineering. Now you can just use some of the funding that you were going to spend on this toward actually constructing it. So this is somewhat a negotiation technique.
Right.
And
Kind of put the stake in.
correct.
Right. So once you get through the enterprise bid process and you get the EIR and you got these drawings, can it still be funded as a separate project, or does it now have to be part of the enterprise?
No, it can be entirely funded as its own project. And
But you got the
what it
environmental
also,
documents done, you got the design.
you got it. And it also means I can go out and seek funding if I need to. If I feel that I'm not seeing a lot of these improvements, to say Caltrans decides, you know what, we're just not going to do it at all. That's okay. I don't like that. But now I can go out and get the funding and do them myself.
Even though it's their property?
I would be restricted on their property, but I could do the improvements like the bike ped improvements, the cycle track, moving the bus stop, putting transit signal phasing, although that is a Caltrans signal, so I'd have to have their buy-in on that. I don't want to do this in a vacuum. I want to do this in partnership. We acted in good faith with Caltrans in the past. They have been an ongoing partner with us. We have received extensive amount of grant funding from Caltrans through other programs. My thought is here that we're helping Caltrans do the right thing, in that I can then later on say, apply for a Caltrans Sustainable Communities grant with them as a partner. They would be funding their own project, and that way we can get this done in common. It also helps us provide a secondary means of funding some of the improvements that would be done through the Enterprise Bridge project. So instead of us having to pay for them that way, we have a second route.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments, commissioners?
Have any questions, but thanks for the detailed report and the statistics.
I agree. Thank you. That was a very compelling argument, and I appreciate all the work you've done on this.
Thank
you. Actually, in the time since the last meeting in this one, I've actually accepted a position at Caltrans, and so I'm going to have to enter no comment, no vote for this.
Understood.
Yep.
Any other comments?
Really quick, is 30% design pretty common for these types of projects?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So typically it's 10% design as a concept level phase. When you get into 30% design, you're actually looking at drainage, and you're actually getting more into traffic analysis. So it's a much more detailed. It's the level of detail that's necessary to approve an environmental document.
We are being asked as a commission to have a vote on recommending the city council authorize transfer of existing budget appropriation from CIP 11037, the Lake Road Mobility Hub, and CIP 11022 Mobility Action Plan, in the amount of $107,295. Sorry, I'm $107,295. And appropriate remaining funds required to advance the Enterprise North Mobility Hub preliminary engineering and environmental documentation concurrently with the Enterprise Corridor and Bridge Crossing Project. That's one recommendation. So it's a transfer of funds. And then the second recommendation that we would like to vote on is recommend that the city council authorize the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with Caltrans to participate in site assessment, design review, and environmental documentation associated with the Enterprise North Park and Ride and the Enterprise Corridor and Bridge Crossing Project. That was a mouthful, but there are two recommendations there. I think we can vote on them separately. We have 4 commissioners who are voting and 1 who is abstaining, and I think that's a quorum, so we can do this. So the first, are we ready to take a vote? Any comment? I will propose that we take a vote on recommending that the city council authorize transfer of funds and other caveats that are in there. Second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner McCrudden?
Aye.
Commissioner Cummings? Chair Zimmer?
Aye.
Commissioner Ford?
Aye.
Then the motion passes. And the second motion is to recommend that the city council authorize the city manager to enter into cooperative agreement with Caltrans. Take a vote on that. Well, or is there a second on this motion?
Second?
Thank you.
Awesome. Commissioner McCredden?
Aye.
Commissioner Cummings? Chair Zimmer?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
And with that, the the commission recommends, approves both of those recommendations. Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Yeah. We are now moving on to item 4, which is consideration of West Sacramento Connect Transportation Public Requests Annual Summary.
Proceed. Great. Well, nice to meet you. I'm Jimmy Fong. I'm a transportation engineer with the Community Development Department in the Transportation and Mobility Division. I've been with the city for 4 months now, so fairly new in my position, but I've been resident and have worked previously on transportation projects in West Sacramento. So very familiar with a lot of the transportation issues that have gone on, but during this process, as I'll be sharing today, summarizing a lot of the public requests that we get through West Sac Connect on all transportation-related matters. I've been aware of even more issues that we are looking to address in our division. So today I will be providing that summary. It's a summary of what was included in the staff report, as well as details regarding transportation in the grand scheme of all public requests that we receive through the platform. And it's a review of both the transportation, not just of the past year, 2024, but going back all the way to 2019.
It's the top round button. Down one.
Oh. So, thank you, Commission Member Cummings, for your earlier request for providing some additional information regarding how transportation stacks up with all the different types of requests. So there are 38 different categories of public requests as provided on the West Sac Connect platform. And several of those are really how it's presented to the public to decide what category to initially categorize their request. So it's not always exactly replicable with which type of city department is responsible, but it does provide some initial information. So yes, this is very small, so hopefully you can see it on your screens because there are 38 categories that there are a lot of different requests. So the first summary that I'm presenting is just from 2024. And so actually, the top requests from this past year have been one with illegal camping, graffiti, abandoned vehicles on public property, parking and traffic enforcement, and code enforcement, and then potholes. So all of those in general are responsible from other departments, specifically the ones semi-related to transportation, parking and traffic enforcement initially is through PD, and potholes is through Public Works. And so traffic and transportation, at least how it's initially summarized, is actually the 12th highest type of request in the city. And so far we've received 154 requests during 2024. And that trend generally has held true, although there's some shifting in the top 6 over the past 6 years, with traffic and transportation still being the 12th highest number of requests. Again, the types of requests really is a barometer of the types of issues that we receive from the city. It's not a directly statistically valid metric with which we evaluate and process all of our tasks that each department has to sort through, but it does provide a lot of feedback. And so, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of not misinformation, just usually as a member of a public, a resident might put a request regarding various transportation issues that we've seen within these 6 categories. And so, parking and traffic enforcement that I mentioned earlier, that really deals with a lot of the speeding issues that, yes, initially might be directly responsible for enforcement by PD, but there are also avenues within our transportation and mobility team that we can look to address those speeding issues from a design standpoint on our roadways. Sidewalks, sometimes those are relevant to sidewalk issues that are more maintenance issues with public works, say like roots are making the sidewalk uneven, versus sidewalk gaps, which is more related to our department or division. Street lights, sometimes it's public works because people think about it in terms of nighttime street lighting, but other people might think of street lights as the actual traffic signals that we deal with along the roadways. Street signs, similar. There's some that are more responsible by public works and some that are more relevant, say if they're requesting traffic, a stop sign or some type of traffic control. We've received some through suggestion and compliments, just in terms of general traffic, but the bulk of it does come through the traffic and transportation category as identified in West Sac Connect. And so from there, my responsibility over the past month or so has been to really dig down in one, sorting through all of the 6 categories from West Sac Connect that could be related to transportation, filtering that down, and then recategorizing them. That's in categories that are more relevant to our division. And so some of them, as you'll see on this screen, is related to requests for speed reduction mechanisms. A lot of them did come through the parking and traffic enforcement category due to issues with speeding in residential areas and sometimes along major arterials and collectors. Those are often tied to speed feedback. So the speed feedback signs that we might see to help with improving enforcement or the speeds on certain roadways. Several other categories that are quite popular in terms of public requests are requests for traffic control evaluation, so stop signs, roundabouts, traffic signals, and those might be issues too that are related to speeding issues as well. So we've taken all of those types of comments in, and as you'll see on this screen, there's quite a few of, with the highest being the need for speed reduction mechanisms, a lot of requests regarding traffic signal operation improvements, just making sure that they're timed appropriately and that they really help with the traffic flow, as well as other requests for traffic control evaluation. And then, but you'll see here we have, requests for improved bike ped facilities and crossings, issues with sight distance, and various other transportation subcategories that I summarized in the staff report. And you'll see here in the map that I have presenting is a summary of kind of the hot spots by each of the categories and trying to group them into the existing capital improvement program projects that we have throughout the city related to these transportation issues, as well as the proposed CIPs that I'll be sharing a little later in this presentation. So regarding a lot of the traffic calming needs and desire from our residents to address speeding through a lot of the residential areas, those are being proposed in areas where we see kind of common groupings. For instance, in each of the neighborhoods, distinct plan areas, we have the Bright Broderick area where we see a lot of similar roadways or issues with speeding, and same with the Michigan Glide along West Capitol, those areas as well. The Park Boulevard has been a pretty common issue that we've received requests on regarding speeding and traffic control around the elementary school and the roundabout. And then a lot in Southport currently that has often been related to the Marshall Corridor and the connections to the Southport Business Park and warehouse areas, as well as through various arterials and residential streets on both sides of Jefferson within Southport. So another couple areas to point out that we do receive a lot of comments on that I might filter in initially, but then have to forward to different departments, are ongoing existing capital improvement program projects. And so those, in the next slide, I'll kind of go over the types of projects that we already have in the works that we have made progress on, are funded at certain levels. And so, as I mentioned, we've received a lot of comments regarding Marshall and Higgins, both in terms of speeding issues, sidewalk gaps, as well as truck traffic management, especially connecting to the industrial areas of Southport. A lot, as I mentioned, regarding traffic signal related issues and improvement to signal timings. And that is addressed in our existing program that we're in the development phase for the traffic management and operations program. There's a lot around more public works and operational issues that is currently in the program development phase for harbor and industrial in the port area. That does include Southport Parkway within the industrial area. That's not yet addressed in the Marshall and Higgins corridor. And historically we've had issues at the 5th and F Street intersection that's already in the I think maybe in the more final design phase for the traffic signal and improvements along that corridor. Jason had already covered Enterprise Bridge and a lot of those connectivity issues. Sacramento Avenue has already been in the works with the proposed plan and improvements along the corridor. North 5th Street, also another proposal that is in the works. The West Capitol Avenue improvements, there's still ongoing improvements that are still being developed in addition to the repaving and restriping plans that have already been completed. And we have a targeted traffic operations improvement program that does address traffic issues in hotspots or areas where we see fit throughout the city, as well as the plans, the Sidewalk and Transportation Equity Program that deals with sidewalk gaps and pedestrian facilities, as well as the Bicycle, Pedestrian, and Trails Master Plan that helps to identify where the next phases of those facilities will go, as well as just ongoing transit and via related programming. So, as I mentioned, out of all of the transportation related requests that we've received, the need for residential traffic calming and safety improvements has really been risen into the attention for city staff in terms of the types of comments that we receive and respond to from the public. And based on this annual summary, or more like the past 6 years summary of transportation-related issues, we're proposing to reinstate the capital improvement program for traffic calming and safety improvements within the city. As I mentioned, as I included in the staff report, that program, I think, was previously hasn't been an existing program within the city for several years, and so I think the need to reinstate this program to really address a lot of the key requests that we're receiving from residents by addressing it within the specific needs of each neighborhood. So Bright Broderick, Michigan Glide, along West Capitol, the State Streets, kind of along Park Boulevard, and the Old West Sacramento Community Plan, and the Southport area, the Northeast Village, so really just everything currently built on the east side of Jefferson, and the Southport Northwest Village, everything that's built on all the residential areas on the west side of Jefferson that aren't already being addressed through the Marshall and Higgins project, as well as just continuing the targeted traffic operations improvement program that's already in the works, and just continuing our coordination regarding other jurisdictions. Most of the comments that we receive that do require coordination with other jurisdictions is with Caltrans at the freeway ramp terminal intersections. So looking to continue to have that conversation to identify improvements that we can make for them. And so, at least with the residential traffic calming program and the 5 community-based transportation safety and traffic calming plans, that does address a lot of our strategic plan goals or visions related to core services and infrastructure, and providing a safe environment that includes well-maintained infrastructure, and in general provides the mobility and connectivity goals for our city. And for each of those plans, at least the preliminary estimates in terms of developing what those plans are, public outreach, the traffic and transportation, data and analysis, and prioritization plan process for each of those neighborhood traffic calming and safety improvement plans is $225,000. That might be it might range in price depending on the scale of each neighborhood and the level of issues that we see, but it's an estimate that that our division have come to find reasonable for this level of effort, as well as down the line, once this plan has gone through the development process and there's the need for final engineering and construction, there may be additional funding needs and opportunities as well during that phase. But that is my presentation so far. Oh, sorry, I haven't gone through some of these. So, I am happy to answer any questions, get feedback regarding specific issues that you see or find conclusions from this data, as well as provide recommendations regarding the proposed neighborhood traffic calming program.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Looks like we have some comments.
Thank you again, I appreciate that. And I'm sorry that you went and did a lot more work than I was thought you would do as far as how this relates to the other project, stuff like that. That was great. Well, I was hoping it would show maybe is that traffic was the highest, and it probably is when you look at the parking and traffic and the transportation, you know, but hoping to get something very strong support that, hey, this is the biggest issue. A lot of issues out there. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I'm a big fan of planning. You guys do a tremendous job of that, and what you guys do has a direct impact on everybody's daily lives. Just amazed at how good a job the city, not only your section, but the city does in planning. I mean, you see it come to fruition. It's something that started 10, 15 years ago. We all know it takes a long time to get things done. Got a plan. This is, I think, a great approach to trying to respond to some of these. I guess just from a timing standpoint, you've got some estimates. You'll go forward to the council at some point in time. What would be the timing to try to implement these? And I'm assuming you probably wouldn't take them all on at the same time. It's got to be a workload issue for capital projects. I mean,
Jason McCoy, Supervisor Transportation Planner, Division Manager. So what we are have already done, actually, because it was already due, is we submitted a capital improvement program request for each of these 5 neighborhoods. It'll be up to City Council to decide if they wanted to pursue this, if they want to fund these, if they only want to fund 1 or 2. It just depends on how they want to act on that. But in total, we're talking about 1.3 million for all of them, which is it's a pretty daunting amount of comments that we've received over several years for traffic calming. That's something that one consultant could potentially do if you have a multi part, having a lead consultant that has an engineering aspect, environmental, somebody with heavy public and community engagement, because that one of the biggest components of this is to reach out to folks, a lot like we've done with Sacramento Avenue, to actually, hear what the people, have to say as far as where they see the issues. And it's not necessarily just traffic calming issues. It could be, crosswalk issues. There's no bike lanes. There's, whatever it is that the neighborhood residents feel are the most important priorities in their neighborhood. The plan itself would look at everybody individually, but as a group, it could be done either through multiple consultant teams or through one. If we receive full funding from the city council or even partial funding, it's such a priority. It's something that our division will look at pretty immediately. And that would be writing, as soon as we get included in the CIP budget, we would write a scope of work, identifying a lot of these things that are in here now, and then requesting proposals for that. Depending on what proposals come back as, it could be, well, for this neighborhood, it's going to be this much, for this neighborhood, it's this much. Or it could be, hey, we want to do all of them, and we're going to do it all for that budget. So it's at this point, I just need to wait and see. We need to wait and see what the city council intends to do. It's going to rely on your recommendation on whether or not they're feeling confident in other aspects of the budget that we may not be privy to, and whatever decision they make, we're prepared to move forward as quickly as possible.
but as far as at this point in time, you're looking at the next fiscal year, and that's are these fund?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you're
So
doing
this
budget
is
proposals for next fiscal year.
correct. So if we get into the budget, so timeline, if you're thinking timeline, let's say city council does approve these for all of the plans, we could begin writing the RFP in summer. We could have it out on the street by this time, next year, and then start work first part of 2026.
He made an interesting point in his write-up about, even though you have all this data of complaints, that, you know, you may be getting more complaints from those who probably more tech savvy versus the lower income neighborhoods, neighborhoods. And so I was wondering, you know, 5 projects here, if you had to sort them out, you know, wouldn't necessarily want to just look at the number of complaints, you know, as far as prioritization, but maybe, again, the whole equity issue. And another thought I had was, when you look at like Michigan Glide, it's 31 miles, and but it impacts 8,900 people, population in the neighborhood. So in essence, about 283 people benefit per mile, kind of thing. I mean, I'm looking for, how do you weigh this kind of stuff? So maybe get creative in that.
And that's, as I had mentioned, and as you're seeing in table 4 of my attachments for the staff report, yes, lane miles, population, those are some other more quantifiable metrics that helps to look at equity in terms of identifying and prioritizing these projects. And there's probably more that you know, staff can look into once we get further along in the analysis project, in terms of how best to equitably address and prioritize these traffic calming issues citywide. So it's good that like you got the point that, yeah, public requests, it's a good barometer for understanding what the issues are, but it's not for to be used entirely for the prioritization process, because it's not a directly equitable metric.
I was just trying, because what you guys do impact people every day. So
Yeah.
how do you get the most bang for your buck? And 31 miles, 8,900 people, you get 283 per mile, versus Southport, you got 8,500 people, but you got 85 miles worth of stuff to look at. That's going to be a bigger project and get as much bang for buck. Yeah. Putting some food for thought on it. But otherwise, I'm good with it.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to thank you so much for all the work and careful thought that's put into this. Seeing things like this on this commission are one of the main reasons I love living in West Sac. So thank you very, very much to all staff for all this.
Jason brought up another point that I just wanted to reiterate. Because of these proposed plans do address, you know, the speeding issues is a safety issue, and as well as these plans might, you know, look at improved crossings for pedestrians and improved facilities for all modes within these residential areas. That, if I'm understanding correctly, that might qualify for the Measure O funding, because it's a safety related type of process or project, as well as the other cost long-term vision in terms of saving resources citywide is, as I mentioned, a lot of these come through the parking and traffic enforcement, which initially go to PD in terms of addressing. So if we're able to, you know, design our way out of improving these programs, that then alleviates resource or, you know, efforts on PD, then there's some cost savings that could be presented there.
Yeah, thank you. That's very insightful, and I appreciate your coming here and giving this presentation as well. I'm a little unclear whether we're supposed to have a recommendation here. I'm not sure we are. Might have been just to even to vote on it or listen.
So yeah, the first one was just to provide feedback. You know, some of that could be just support regarding the overall development and process of what these proposed 5 neighborhood transportation, safety, and traffic calming plans are, as well as provide the recommendation for City Council to appropriate that funding for those 5 community-based transportation, safety, and traffic calming plans.
Sounds good. Okay. I would like to make, do you have a comment?
Yeah, quick comment. I've been working with a lot of schools lately, and in the data, I was surprised to hear or to see how few complaints you got for the near schools category.
Yeah, so I'll touch on that point. The whole summary process is quite intensive, as you can imagine. And so, as I mentioned, I think in the tables that sometimes the initial categorization might not capture all of the different metrics. So a lot of for example, just based on my review of these issues, a lot of the issues on, say, Park Boulevard and the roundabout were just initially categorized in the speed reduction mechanisms and traffic control evaluation subcategory, even though, a block away, I think Fallbrook Elementary is right there. So, yeah, it not fully in capturing, but likewise, the same type of issues often near schools in terms of, providing that access, safe walking to and from the schools would be addressed in this type of traffic calming and safety proposal for these neighborhood plans.
Great.
This really highlights the need for us to do more of a comprehensive investigation at the neighborhood level to understand what is the public really concerned about, where are the problems really located. And it also helps us from, say, somebody on one street says, well, I want speed bumps on there. Well, if we went out there and just put in speed bumps, then that could shift the burden on somebody else. It could actually move the traffic then closer to a sensitive receptor, and we wouldn't know it until you study the effects afterward. So unintended consequences, I always like to say that because it's very true. So in order to avoid those unintended consequences and potentially causing more problems than solving them, you really got to look at this comprehensively.
Great.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments. And I believe I'd like to make a motion to vote on approving the recommended actions as we heard about tonight.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner McCredden?
Aye.
Commissioner Cumming? Chair Zimmer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rohr?
Aye.
Commissioner Ford?
Aye.
All right, and with that, the motion passes. And we are done with the regular agenda. We're moving on to General Administration Function Part 2. Do we have a director's report?
Not this time.
Not in this time. Commission calendar, I believe the next commission meeting, it would be after the new year, in which case it may be a new commission. If folks have applied to be reappointed, you may be here. I don't know. So sometime in January. It may be pushed off because it often is early in the year.
Madam Clerk, do we know the first Monday of January?
January's.
Okay.
Pretty early, yeah. And with that, I don't think I need to have a motion to adjourn. We can just, all right. We are going to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
you. Tired.